Before we begin, let me ask you this. What would you do if the person you loved most married your sister? And what if escaping that pain led you straight into the jaws of something far more dangerous? Stay until the end to find out how one woman's heartbreak became the beginning of an impossible survival story. Don't forget to hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. The champagne tasted like poison. Elara Vance stood at the edge of the terrace, watching 200 guests celebrate a union that had carved out her insides and left her hollow. The ocean crashed against the cliffs below, violent, relentless, mirroring the chaos she kept locked behind her practiced smile. Her sister's white dress caught the golden hour light, making Cassandra look like something divine, untouchable, beautiful, perfect. His. Alara's fingers tightened around the champagne flute until her knuckles went bone white. 3 years. She'd loved Marcus Hale for 3 years before Cassandra even knew his name, before her sister had decided she wanted him too. And when Cassandra wanted something, she took it. "You're not drinking." Her mother appeared beside her, immaculate in dusty rose silk, her expression carved from the same marble as her expectations. Margaret Vance didn't ask questions. She made observations that demanded correction. "People will notice." Alara brought the glass to her lips, let the bubbles burn her throat. "I'm drinking." "You're sulking." Margaret's voice dropped to that particular frequency reserved for disappointments. "I won't have you ruining your sister's day with whatever petty jealousy." "I'm not jealous." The lie came smooth, practiced. She'd been rehearsing it for 6 months, ever since the engagement announcement had blindsided her at a family dinner she'd almost skipped. Almost. Margaret's eyes, the same steel gray as Alara's own, narrowed. "Then act like it. The Westbrook partners are watching. Your father needs this merger, and that means we all need to look like a united front." She adjusted Alara's bridesmaid dress, a shade of blush that washed her out intentionally. Cassandra had chosen it. "Smile. Dance. Pretend you're happy for her. Pretend. Always pretend. Always." That's what the Vance family did best. Pretend the money wasn't running out. Pretend her father's company wasn't hemorrhaging investors. Pretend Marcus Hale's tech fortune and political connections weren't the real reason this wedding was happening at a cliffside estate with a guest list pulled from Forbes and the congressional directory. Pretend Alara's heart wasn't shattering with every toast, every kiss, every goddamn smile Marcus gave her sister. "I need air." Alara set down the champagne before she threw it. "You've been getting air for the past hour." Margaret caught her wrist, manicured nails digging in just enough to hurt without leaving marks. "Get back to the reception. Dance with the senator's sons. Make yourself useful for once." For once. The words hit like they always did, landing in that space between her ribs where she kept all her mother's casual cruelties. Alara had graduated top of her class at Yale, spoke 4 languages, built her own sustainable architecture firm from nothing because her father refused to let her play at his company. None of it mattered. Cassandra was the star, effortless, charming, perfect, and Alara was the disappointment who didn't know how to shine. She pulled her wrist free. "I'll be back, Alara." But she was already moving, heels clicking across imported Italian marble as she fled toward the gardens. Behind her, the band struck up something jazzy and romantic. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone called her name, probably one of those senators' sons her mother wanted to auction her off to. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. The gardens gave way to manicured lawn, then to wild coastal scrub. The estate backed onto thousands of acres of protected wilderness, rugged, untamed land that hadn't changed since before humans built their fragile civilizations on its edges. Alara kicked off her heels at the tree line, letting her bare feet sink into moss and pine needles. The forest swallowed the wedding sounds, replaced them with wind through ancient trees, the distant crash of waves, the rustle of things unseen moving through underbrush. It smelled like salt and earth and growing things, real, raw, honest. She walked until her feet bled, until the sun started its descent and the shadows grew teeth, until the cold bit through her thin dress and her breath came in clouds. She walked because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering the way Marcus had looked at her once, before Cassandra, before everything turned to shit. "You see the world differently," he'd told her on their first date, back when he was just a brilliant, awkward programmer and she was a grad student sketching green buildings on napkins. "Like you're trying to fix it. I love that about you." 3 months later, he'd met Cassandra at a fundraiser. 6 months after that, they were engaged. And Alara? She got to be the supportive sister, the good daughter, the woman who smiled through it all because that's what Vances did. They pretended. She stopped walking when she realized she was lost. The trees here were older, thicker. Their canopy blocked out the dying light, turning the world into a cathedral of shadows. No path. No sounds of civilization. Just wilderness stretching in every direction, indifferent to her expensive dress and bleeding feet and shattered heart. Smart women didn't wander into unmarked forests in evening wear. But Alara had stopped feeling smart around the time she'd realized she was in love with a man who looked at her sister like she hung the moon. She sat on a fallen log, let the cold seep into her bones. Maybe she'd just stay here. Let the forest take her. At least then she wouldn't have to watch Marcus kiss Cassandra at the send-off, wouldn't have to endure her mother's pointed comments about biological clocks, and wasted potential, wouldn't have to keep pretending. A branch snapped. Alara's head jerked up. The shadows had deepened, gotten hungry. Night was falling fast now, and with it came the understanding that she'd done something profoundly stupid. Bears lived in these woods, mountain lions, things that saw bleeding, exhausted humans as easy prey. Another sound, closer. Something moving through the underbrush with deliberate silence. She stood slowly, scanning the darkening forest. Hello? Nothing. Just wind and the creak of old trees and her own ragged breathing. Then she saw it. Eyes. Pale silver reflecting what little light remained. Too high off the ground to be anything natural. Too intelligent to be anything safe. The wolf stepped from the shadows like it owned them. It was massive, bigger than any wolf had a right to be. Its coat was pure white, almost luminescent in the gloom, and its body moved with liquid grace that spoke of perfect muscle and bone-deep predatory confidence. But it was the eyes that stopped Alara's heart. They weren't animal eyes. They were aware, assessing, knowing. She should run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs had turned to stone, and some deeper part of her, the part that was so damn tired of running, always running from things that hurt, just stood there. The wolf tilted its head, studying her. They stared at each other across 10 feet of forest floor, predator and prey, wild and civilized, and Alara felt something crack open inside her chest. Not fear, something worse. Recognition, like she knew this creature, like she'd been waiting for it. I should be terrified of you, she said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. Small miracle. But I'm too tired to be afraid anymore. The wolf's ears flicked forward. It took a step closer. Alara didn't move. If you're going to kill me, make it quick. I've had a really shit day. Another step. The wolf was close enough now that she could see the power in its shoulders, the slight curl of its lip revealing teeth designed to tear flesh from bone. Close enough that when it exhaled, she felt its breath on her skin. It circled her once, slowly. She felt its presence like heat, like gravity, like something fundamental shifting in the space between heartbeats. When it completed the circle, it stopped directly in front of her. Then it sat. Just sat there, watching her with those impossible silver eyes. This is insane, Alara muttered. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. The world had narrowed to this moment, this clearing, this creature that should kill her, but didn't. The wolf's gaze flicked to her bleeding feet, then back to her face. Something passed through its expression, if wolves could have expressions, that almost looked like concern? No. Impossible. It was a wolf. A predator. An animal operating on instinct and hunger. But when it stood and started walking, it looked back at her, waiting. You want me to follow you? It wasn't a question. The wolf held her gaze for a long moment, then turned and padded deeper into the forest. Every rational cell in Alara's brain screamed at her to do the opposite, to run back toward the estate, toward civilization, toward safety. But safety was her mother's cutting comments and her sister's perfect marriage, and a life spent pretending she was fine when she was splintering into smaller and smaller pieces. And this wolf, impossible, beautiful, terrifying, was offering her something else. She followed. They walked for what felt like hours. The wolf moved like water through the trees, occasionally glancing back to make sure she kept pace. Alara's feet burned. Her dress caught on thorns and branches, tearing expensive fabric to ribbons. The temperature dropped, and she shivered hard enough that her jaw ached. But she didn't stop. The wolf led her to a stream, waited while she drank and washed her feet. Led her around a ravine she wouldn't have seen in the dark. Stopped when she stumbled, gave her time to catch her breath. It was protecting her, guiding her, claiming her. The thought came from nowhere, sharp and certain and completely irrational. But Alara had stopped trusting rational thought around the time she'd walked into the wilderness in a bridesmaid dress, because she couldn't bear to watch her sister marry the man she loved. The forest opened into a clearing. The moon had risen, full and silver and too bright, turning everything to mercury and shadow. In the center of the clearing stood the ruins of something old, stone foundations, crumbling walls, the skeleton of a structure that had died long before Alara was born. The wolf stopped at the threshold, turned to look at her. "Is this home?" she asked, too exhausted to feel ridiculous for talking to an animal. The wolf stared at her with those knowing eyes, then did something that stopped her breath. It bowed its head. Not a dog's submission. Something else. Something that felt like acknowledgement, like choice. Then it turned and disappeared into the ruins. Alara stood at the edge of the clearing, every rational thought warring with whatever strange pull had dragged her this far. She should go back, find her way to the estate, face her mother's fury, apologize for ruining Cassandra's perfect day. But going back meant returning to a life that had slowly suffocated her, meant pretending, always pretending. She stepped into the clearing. The ruins offered some shelter from the wind. Alara found a corner where two walls still stood, sank down against cold stone. Her whole body shook with exhaustion and cold, and the delayed shock of everything she'd just done. The wolf appeared from the shadows, carrying something in its jaws. It dropped the object at her feet, a blanket, heavy and wool, stolen from God knew where, then settled beside her, not touching, just there, close enough that she could feel its warmth. "Thank you," Alara whispered. The wolf's ear flicked. It laid its head on its paws, but its eyes stayed open, watching, guarding. She pulled the blanket around herself, let her head rest against the stone. Tomorrow, she'd have to face reality. Face whatever consequences came from disappearing into the wilderness during her sister's wedding reception. But tonight, in this impossible moment, with this impossible creature keeping watch, she let herself just be. Broken. Bleeding. Free. Her eyes grew heavy. The last thing she saw before sleep took her was the wolf, still watching with those silver eyes, still protecting what it had claimed. She woke to the smell of smoke and coffee. For a confused moment, Alara thought she was back at the estate, that everything had been a dream. The wolf, the ruins, the walk through darkness with a predator as her guide. Then reality crashed back in. Cold stone against her spine, torn dress, feet that screamed when she moved. Not a dream. She sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. The blanket fell away and she realized someone had covered her with a second one during the night. The ruins looked different in daylight, less mysterious, more sad. Just old stones being slowly reclaimed by the forest. The wolf was gone. In its place, crouched by a small fire, was a man. Alara's breath caught. He had his back to her, stirring something in a battered camping pot. But even from behind, she could see the way he held himself, contained, controlled, radiating the same coiled power the wolf had possessed. Dark hair, too long, broad shoulders under a worn flannel shirt, boots that had seen serious miles. He turned and the world tilted. Silver eyes. The exact shade of the wolf's. "You're awake." His voice was rough, unused to speaking. He poured coffee into a tin cup, held it out to her. "Drink. You're hypothermic." Alara didn't take the cup. Her mind was trying to process what her instincts already knew. Where's the wolf? Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe, or recognition. There's no wolf. Don't lie to me. She stood, ignoring the protest of her body. I followed a white wolf here. It brought me to these ruins. It was here last night. You were alone when I found you this morning. He set the cup down, rose to his full height. He was tall, easily 6'3", and moved with that same liquid grace. You're lucky I was checking the old homestead. This far out, exposure kills. Who are you? Rowan Gray. He said it like she should know the name. When she didn't react, something almost like relief crossed his features. I own the land you're trespassing on. All of it. The estate where you came from? He gestured vaguely. That's the edge of my property. Everything past the tree line belongs to me. Alara looked at him. Really looked. Expensive watch on his wrist that didn't match the worn clothes. Hands that were scarred but clean. Features that would have been handsome if they weren't so carefully blank. And those eyes. Those impossible silver eyes that had watched her in the dark. You're lying. Excuse me? You know exactly what happened last night. She took a step toward him, some reckless part of her rising up. I don't know how, but you were there. You were the wolf. Rowan's expression didn't change, but she caught the slight tension in his shoulders. That's impossible. Is it? Another step. Because you have the same eyes, the same way of moving, and you said you found me, but you knew I came from the estate. How? For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, slowly, deliberately, he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile predators gave prey before they struck. You want to know what I am? His voice dropped, got dangerous. You really want to know? Alara's heart hammered, but she held her ground. Yes. He moved faster than she could track, was suddenly in her space, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. This close, she could see the faint scars on his face. The way his pupils dilated, then contracted, the sharp line of his jaw. I'm the man who could kill you before you took your next breath, he said softly. I'm the monster your fairy tales warned you about. I'm the thing that lives in these woods and makes sure no one comes back alive. He leaned in and she felt his breath against her ear. I'm the reason you should have stayed at that wedding and married some safe, boring senator's son. He pulled back, watching her face, waiting for the fear. But Alara had spent her whole life afraid of disappointing her parents, of not being good enough, of loving someone who could never love her back. And she was so damn tired of it. I don't believe you, she said. Rowan blinked. What? If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it last night. Instead, you brought me here, kept me warm, made me coffee. She gestured at the fire. Monsters don't do that. You don't know what monsters do, and you don't know me. She held his stare, refusing to look away. So either kill me or stop trying to scare me. I've had a really terrible week and I'm too exhausted for games. Something shifted in his expression. The predatory edge softened, became almost curious. He studied her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. What's your name? Alara Vance. Vance. He said it slowly, like he was tasting the word. The wedding. Your sister married Marcus Hale yesterday. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes? And you ran. I needed air. You needed to escape. He moved back to the fire, poured coffee for himself. I watched the whole thing from the ridge, saw you walk into the forest like you were trying to disappear. The confession should have scared her. Instead, it made something click into place. You were watching me. I watch everything that happens on my land. He took a drink, eyes never leaving her face. It's how I've survived. Survived what? But he didn't answer, just gestured at the second cup of coffee. Drink, then I'll take you back. What if I don't want to go back? The words surprised them both. Alara hadn't realized she was going to say them until they were out, hanging in the cold morning air. But once they were spoken, she knew they were true. She didn't want to go back. Rowan set down his cup carefully. You can't stay here. Why not? Because it's not safe. Safe for who? Me or you? His jaw tightened. This isn't a game, Alara. These woods, my land, it's not meant for people like you. People like me, she repeated. You don't know anything about me. I know you ran from a wedding in a $1,000 dress and designer heels. I know you're from money and comfort and a world that doesn't include predators. He moved toward her again, and this time his eyes had gone flat. Cold. I know you're soft, and soft things die out here. Alara laughed. The sound was sharp, bitter, nothing like her usual careful control. Soft. Right. Because growing up with Margaret Vance as a mother is so comfortable. Because watching the man I love marry my sister is so safe. Because spending my entire life being the disappointment, the one who doesn't quite measure up, the one who's never enough. That makes me soft. She was shaking now, months of suppressed rage finally breaking free. You think you're the only one who knows how to survive. I've been surviving my whole life. I just did it in boardrooms and charity galas instead of the wilderness. So don't tell me I'm soft when you don't know the first thing about what I've endured. Silence crashed down between them. Rowan stared at her, and for the first time since he'd appeared, his careful mask cracked. She saw surprise there, and something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. You loved him, he said finally. Marcus Hale. Love. Present tense. The admission cost her, but she was done pretending. I'm still in love with him, and I hate myself for it. Then why did you let your sister take him? Because that's what good daughters do. They sacrifice. They smile. They pretend it doesn't kill them. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold again. And because Marcus never felt the same way. He liked me. Maybe he even cared about me. But Cassandra? He looked at her like she was the sun, so I stepped back, played my part, ruined myself so they could be happy. That's not love, Rowan said quietly. That's martyrdom. What's the difference? He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he picked up the blanket she'd dropped, held it out to her. You're still shaking. Alara took it, pulled it around her shoulders. Thank you. For last night. For this. She gestured at the fire, the coffee, the shelter. You didn't have to help me. I know. So why did you? Rowan looked away, jaw working like he was fighting with himself. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Because I know what it's like to want to disappear. To be so tired of pretending that you'd rather face the wilderness than go back to the lies. He met her eyes again. And because when I saw you standing in my forest, bleeding and broken and still refusing to run from a wolf that could have killed you, I saw someone who might actually survive out here. I thought you said soft things die. They do. His smile was sad this time. But you're not as soft as you think. You're just untested. Something passed between them then, an understanding maybe, or the beginning of one. Two people who'd both learned how to survive by becoming something other than what the world expected. Two people who knew how to wear masks, so convincing they'd almost forgotten who they were underneath. I should take you back, Rowan said, but he didn't move. You should, Alara agreed. But she didn't move either. They stood there in the ruins of something old and dead, while the forest breathed around them and the morning light turned the world to gold. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Alara didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she could breathe. They walked in silence. Rowan moved through the forest like he was part of it, avoiding obstacles Alara couldn't see, reading signs in bent grass and disturbed earth. She followed, torn dress catching on thorns, bare feet finding every sharp rock. He'd offered her his boots. She'd refused. Pride, maybe, or stubbornness, or the strange, reckless part of her that had woken up when she'd followed a white wolf into the dark.
The estate's about 3 miles east, Rowan said, breaking the silence. I'll get you close. Then you're on your own.
If they see you, what? His shoulders tensed. Your family and I have history, bad history. It's better if we don't interact. What kind of history? The kind that ends with lawyers and property disputes and threats. He navigated around a fallen tree, then waited for her to catch up. Your father wanted to buy my land for development. Luxury homes, golf courses, the usual. I said no. He didn't take it well. Alara absorbed this. It sounded exactly like something Richard Vance would do. See something he wanted, assume money could buy it, get vicious when it couldn't. How long ago? 5 years, but men like your father don't forget being told no. Rowan glanced back at her. Which is why you showing up on my land in that dress at your sister's wedding to Marcus Hale, whose tech company your father's been trying to merge with, looks like some kind of setup. It's not. I know. He stopped, turned to face her. I watched you last night, remember? Saw the way you looked at them. Saw you break. Something flickered in his silver eyes. That wasn't acting. That was real. The observation was too accurate, cut too close. Ilara looked away. I should have stayed. Smiled through it. Been a good daughter. Why? Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. And how's that working for you? The question was gentle, but it landed like a blow. Ilara opened her mouth, closed it. Because the answer was obvious. It wasn't working, had never worked. She'd sacrificed everything to be the daughter her parents wanted, the sister Cassandra needed, the woman Marcus could admire from a distance. And what had it gotten her? Nothing. Worse than nothing. A life built on pretending, on slowly erasing herself to make room for everyone else's happiness. It's not, she admitted finally. It's killing me. Rowan studied her face for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out, caught her chin gently, tilted her face up until she had to meet his eyes. Then stop dying, he said quietly. Stop sacrificing yourself for people who don't deserve it. Stop pretending. His thumb brushed her cheek, and only then did she realize she was crying. You walked into the wilderness last night looking for an escape. Maybe you found one. In the woods? With a wolf? With yourself. He let her go, stepped back. The wolf just showed you the way. Before Ilara could respond, voices cut through the forest. Distant, but getting closer. Search parties. Looking for the missing bridesmaid who'd vanished during the reception. Rowan's entire demeanor changed. The almost gentle man disappeared, replaced by something harder, dangerous. You need to go, now. Rowan, listen to me. He caught her shoulders, his grip just this side of painful. When you get back, they're going to ask questions. Tell them you got lost, slept in the woods. Don't mention me. Don't mention the ruins. If your father finds out you were on my land, with me, he'll use it. Turn it into something ugly. I don't care what he... You should. His eyes had gone flat again, that predatory coldness back in full force. Because I have enemies, Ilara. Real ones. And if they think you mean something to me, they'll come for you. They'll use you to get to me. So when you go back, you forget this happened. Forget you saw me. Forget... I'm not forgetting you. The words came out fierce, certain. I don't care about my father or his lawyers or whatever history you have. You saved my life last night. You didn't have to, but you did. That means something. It means you're alive. That's all. Liar. His hands tightened on her shoulders. For a moment, she thought he might shake her, might push her away and disappear into the forest like the wild thing he was. But instead, he pulled her forward, pressed his forehead to hers. You're going to make this complicated, aren't you? He said, voice rough. Probably. Damn it. But he was almost smiling. Almost. When they ask where you were, say you got lost past the marker stones. That's neutral territory. Not mine, not theirs. And when they ask why I left, tell them the truth. You needed air. You walked too far, got turned around in the dark. His breath was warm against her skin. Just leave out the wolf. The voices were closer now. Ilara could make out words, her name mostly, called over and over with increasing panic. Her mother was going to destroy her. Cassandra would be furious that her dramatic disappearance had stolen focus from the perfect wedding. And Marcus would look at her with pity, like he always did. I have to go, she said, but she didn't move. Yes. Will I see you again? Rowan pulled back enough to look at her, silver eyes searching her face like he was memorizing it. You shouldn't want to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He let her go, stepped back into the shadows, already disappearing. Go, Ilara, before they find us both. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand a real answer, a promise, something to hold on to. But the voices were too close, and Rowan was already fading into the forest like he'd never been there at all. Just a ghost. A wolf. A man who'd shown her what it felt like to stop pretending, if only for a few hours. Ilara turned and ran toward the voices, toward civilization, toward the life that was waiting to swallow her whole again. Behind her, the forest breathed, and somewhere in its depths, silver eyes watched her go. The search party found her stumbling through the underbrush half a mile from the estate, dress in tatters, feet bloody, looking exactly like what she was, a woman who'd spent the night in the wilderness. Margaret's scream could have shattered glass. Where the hell have you been? Her mother grabbed her shoulders hard enough to bruise, shaking her like she was 12 again and had tracked mud through the foyer. Do you have any idea what you've put us through? The humiliation, the speculation? I got lost. Alara kept her voice flat, dead. The lie Rowan had given her. I needed air, walked too far, couldn't find my way back in the dark. You needed air. Margaret's laugh was vicious. While your sister's wedding guests whispered about the unstable Vance daughter who disappeared during the reception, while your father had to make excuses to the Westbrook partners, while Marcus and Cassandra had to delay their departure because we couldn't find you. Marcus. The name hit like a fist to the gut. Alara looked past her mother and saw him standing with the other searchers, Cassandra clutched to his side. Her sister looked perfect even now. Hair still artfully arranged, makeup flawless, wedding dress pristine white against the green forest, like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread titled Bride Endures Family Drama with Grace. Marcus met Alara's eyes. She saw pity there, concern, everything except what she wanted. I'm sorry, she said, because that's what they needed to hear. I wasn't thinking clearly. You never think clearly. Margaret released her, stepped back like touching Alara contaminated her somehow. Get her to the car, get her cleaned up, and someone call Dr. Morrison. I want her evaluated before she pulls another stunt like this. I don't need a psychiatrist. That's not your decision to make. Her mother's voice could have cut steel. You disappeared for 12 hours. You look like you've been mauled. Either you're having some kind of breakdown or, she paused, eyes narrowing, or you're doing this for attention. Either way, it stops now. One of the estate security guards, a thick-necked man named Torres, moved toward Alara. She took an involuntary step back, and something must have shown on her face because Marcus stepped forward. I'll take her, he said quietly. Cassie, stay with your mother. Marcus, you don't have to. It's fine. He was already moving toward Alara, gentle and careful like she was something broken, which she supposed she was. Come on, let's get you back. They walked in silence, Marcus supporting her weight when she stumbled. His touch was familiar. She'd imagined it often enough during their brief courtship, before Cassandra had entered the picture. But now it just felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. You scared us, he said finally. When you disappeared, I thought, I was worried something had happened to you. Something did happen to me. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. I watched the man I love marry my sister. That's pretty fucking traumatic. Marcus stopped walking. Alara, don't. She pulled away from him, stood on her own despite her screaming feet. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't tell me you value my friendship or that you hope we can still be close. Just don't. He looked genuinely distressed. Marcus Hale, tech billionaire and political golden boy, looking at her like she was the one who'd hurt him. I never meant to hurt you. I know, that's the worst part. Alara started walking again, forcing him to follow. You're a good man, Marcus. You always have been. You just never loved me. And that's not your fault. You can't control who you love. Can't you? The question was so quiet she almost missed it. She stopped. Turned. What? Nothing. Forget I said anything. But his expression had shifted, become complicated. I should get back to Cassandra. You going to be okay? No, she was never going to be okay. But she'd learned to lie so smoothly that even she believed it sometimes. I'll be fine. Marcus studied her face like he was looking for something, then nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. He walked away, back to his bride, back to his perfect life. And Alara stood there bleeding and filthy, and so tired she could barely stand, watching the future she'd wanted disappear into the elegant crowd of people who'd never understand what it felt like to want something so badly it destroyed you. The next 3 days were hell. Dr. Morrison arrived within hours, a thin woman with sharp eyes and sharper questions. She sat Alara down in one of the estate's sitting rooms and proceeded to dissect her mental state with surgical precision. Have you been feeling depressed? Sometimes. Have you had thoughts of self-harm? No. But you walked into the wilderness alone, at night, in inappropriate clothing. That suggests either poor judgment or a subconscious death wish. Or it suggests I needed space for my family and didn't realize how far I'd gone. Alara kept her voice calm, reasonable. The voice she used in business meetings when men tried to dismiss her ideas. I made a mistake. I'm not suicidal. Dr. Morrison made a note. Your mother is concerned about your reaction to your sister's marriage. My mother is concerned about appearances. Are you jealous of your sister? The question was designed to provoke. Alara recognized the tactic: create emotional response, gauge authenticity. She'd used similar strategies herself when negotiating contracts. I'm hurt, she said carefully. My sister married someone I cared about. That's painful, but I'm not going to do anything destructive because of it. More notes, more questions. By the time Dr. Morrison finished, Alara felt scraped raw, every defense mechanism exposed and cataloged. The doctor recommended therapy, stress management, possibly medication. Margaret took the recommendations like ammunition, already planning how to use them. The family dinner that night was an exercise in passive-aggressive warfare. The Westbrook partners asked about you, her father said, cutting into his steak with precise movements. Richard Vance looked like what he was. Old money trying desperately to hold on to relevance. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of face that had learned to hide desperation behind aristocratic detachment. I told them you'd been feeling unwell, that the excitement of the wedding had overwhelmed you. How thoughtful, Alara muttered. Don't be sarcastic. Margaret sipped her wine, every movement calculated. Your father contained the damage you caused. The least you can do is show gratitude. I got lost in the woods, Mother. I didn't burn down the estate. You might as well have. Cassandra spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. She'd been silent through most of the meal, but apparently she'd had enough. Do you know how many people asked me where you were? How many photos got ruined because my bridesmaid disappeared? How many times I had to smile and pretend it didn't matter that my sister couldn't be bothered to stay for my wedding? Alara looked at her sister, really looked. Saw the perfect facade, the practiced wounded expression, the way Cassandra had mastered making everything about her suffering. I'm sorry my breakdown inconvenienced you. Don't be dramatic. But Cassandra's eyes had gone hard. You've always done this. Made everything about you. When I got into Princeton, you spent the whole celebration dinner talking about your architecture program. When I got engaged, you barely managed to congratulate me before finding an excuse to leave. And at my wedding, you couldn't even stick around long enough to see me off. That's not fair, isn't it? Cassandra leaned forward, and for a moment the mask slipped. Alara saw something ugly underneath. Resentment, maybe, or triumph. You've never been happy for me. Not really. You just pretend and then you find ways to make it hurt. The accusation was so backwards, so completely inverted from reality, that Alara actually laughed. The sound was broken, slightly unhinged. You're right. I've never been happy for you. Because you take everything I want and make it yours. You did it with Mom and Dad's attention. You did it with my friends. And you did it with Marcus. Silence crashed down like a bomb. Richard's fork clinked against his plate. Margaret's face had gone white with fury, and Cassandra just stared at her, eyes wide with what might have been genuine shock. You think I took Marcus? Her sister's voice had gone very quiet, dangerous. You think I stole him from you? I know you did. We went on 3 dates. Cassandra stood, chair scraping against hardwood. 3 awkward dates where you talked about buildings the whole time, and he looked bored. That's not a relationship, Alara. That's not love. That's you projecting onto someone who was too polite to tell you there was no chemistry. That's bullshit. Is it? Because Marcus told me about those dates, about how much he liked you as a person but didn't feel any spark, about how he was trying to figure out how to let you down gently when we met. Cassandra's smile was cruel now, all pretense of sisterly concern gone. I didn't steal him. He was never yours to begin with. The words landed like bullets, each one finding a target. Alara felt herself cracking, all the careful control she'd maintained for months splintering apart. Get out, Margaret said, pointing at Alara. Go to your room. We'll discuss your behavior in the morning. I'm 28 years old. You can't send me to my room like a child. Then act like an adult instead of a jealous teenager. Her mother's voice could have frozen oceans. You're not well, Alara. Dr. Morrison confirmed it. Until you get the help you need, you're not welcome at family functions. Richard didn't say anything, just kept eating his steak, like his daughter wasn't being dismantled in front of him, like this was just another business problem to be managed. Alara stood slowly. Every eye in the room tracked her movement, waiting to see if she'd explode, if she'd give them more ammunition to prove she was unstable. Instead, she smiled. It felt like her face was cracking. "You're right. I'm not well. Being part of this family has made me sick. But I'm done pretending I'm the problem, done letting you all treat me like I'm defective because I don't perform happiness on command." She walked out before they could respond, climbed the stairs to her childhood bedroom, the one they kept preserved like a museum, all pink walls and achievements she'd never quite managed to celebrate, and started packing. She made it 2 hours before the wolf came back. Alara was shoving clothes into a suitcase when she heard it, a low sound outside her window, half growl, half whine. She froze, heart hammering. The estate was surrounded by high fences, security cameras, motion sensors. Nothing wild should have been able to get this close. But when she looked out the window, there it was. The white wolf stood on the lawn 3 stories below, visible in the security lights. It was looking directly at her window, and even from this distance, she could see its eyes. Silver. Knowing. Impossible. Alara glanced at her bedroom door, locked from the inside, then made a decision that would have horrified Dr. Morrison. She opened the window, climbed out onto the decorative ledge that ran along the second floor, and started making her way down. Her father had always hated the ornamental stonework, called it frivolous. But right now, Alara blessed every carved flourish that gave her handholds. She dropped the last 6 feet, landed hard on the lawn. The wolf didn't move, just watched her with those impossible eyes. "You're going to get yourself shot," she whispered. "There's security everywhere." The wolf tilted its head, almost like it understood. Then it turned and started walking toward the tree line. "Wait." Alara ran after it, barefoot again, still in the clothes she'd worn to dinner. "Wait, damn it." It stopped, looked back at her. The same patient expression it had worn when leading her through the forest. The same certainty that she would follow. And she did. They made it to the trees before security noticed. Alara heard shouts behind her, saw flashlights cutting through the dark. But the wolf moved fast now, and she ran with it, branches whipping her face, roots trying to trip her. Running from the estate, from her family, from everything that had slowly suffocated her. The wolf led her deep into the forest, past the marker stones Rowan had mentioned, into territory that felt wilder, older. The trees here were massive, their canopy blocking out the moon. Everything smelled like earth and decay and growing things. They stopped in a clearing. The wolf turned to face her, and Alara watched, actually watched this time, instead of being too tired or scared or broken to process what she was seeing. The air around the wolf shimmered, bent, its form blurred, bones shifting with sounds that should have made her sick. But she couldn't look away. Couldn't do anything but stand there as the impossible happened. Where the wolf had been, Rowan Gray stood, naked, covered in scars, breathing hard like the transformation had cost him. "You're real," Alara said stupidly. "The wolf. It's really you." "Yes." His voice was rough, damaged. He grabbed clothes from a bag hidden in the hollow of a tree, started dressing with quick efficiency. "You weren't supposed to see that." "But I did." "I know." He pulled on jeans, boots, a dark shirt. Every movement was controlled, careful. When he was dressed, he finally looked at her. "Why did you follow me?" "Because I'm tired of running away from impossible things." She took a step toward him. "Because 3 days ago, you showed me what it felt like to stop pretending. And because when my family tried to convince me I was crazy for believing in you, I realized I'd rather be crazy than spend another minute in that house." Rowan studied her face, silver eyes catching what little moonlight filtered through the trees. "They'll come looking for you. Let them." "Alara, I'm done, Rowan." The words came out fierce, certain. "Done being the good daughter. Done sacrificing myself for people who treat me like a problem to be managed. Done pretending I'm fine when I'm dying inside." She closed the distance between them. "You asked me to forget you. I can't. I tried, but I can't." He caught her wrists when she reached for him, held her still. His grip was gentle but unbreakable. "You don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me." "I'm not human. Not fully. Not anymore." His voice had gone flat, reciting facts like they didn't destroy him. "I'm a shifter, a werewolf, if you want to use the fairy tale term. And I'm not one of the good ones who controls it, who integrates with society. I'm broken, damaged. My wolf and human sides are fractured. Sometimes I'm me, sometimes I'm the wolf, and sometimes I'm both, and neither, and I don't know which one is real. I don't care. You should. He released her wrists, stepped back. Because my kind has rules, laws, and the most important one is that humans don't get to know about us. What you saw tonight, what you know, that breaks the fundamental law of our existence. So what happens now? You kill me to keep the secret? No. The word came out savage. Never. But others might. If they find out what you know, if they think you're a threat. He stopped, jaw working. There are packs, Ilara. Families, structures. And I broke away from all of them years ago because I couldn't follow their rules, couldn't be what they needed. But that doesn't mean they stopped watching me, stopped waiting for me to prove I'm the danger they always said I was. What does that mean? Rowan ran a hand through his hair, frustration and something darker rolling off him in waves. It means if they find out a human knows our secret, they'll eliminate the threat. And if they find out that human is connected to me, that I've been watching you, protecting you, that I shifted in front of you and didn't kill you to hide the evidence, they'll see it as proof I've gone rogue, become unstable. Have you? I don't know. The honesty in his voice was brutal. The wolf wants you, has wanted you since it first saw you in the forest, broken and bleeding and still fighting. And I want you too. But I don't know if that's real or if it's just the fractured parts of me trying to claim something to make ourselves feel whole. Ilara processed this, the impossible reality of standing in a forest with a man who turned into a wolf, discussing pack politics and primal desires like they were normal things. What does the wolf want with me? Everything. Rowan's eyes had started to glow, just slightly. Silver bleeding into something brighter. To protect you, possess you. Mark you as pack, as mine, as something no other wolf can touch. It's not rational. It's not safe. It's instinct and obsession and need. And what do you want? He looked at her for a long moment, something raw and desperate crossing his features. I want you to run. I want you to go back to your family, your safe life, your world where monsters are just stories. I want you to forget you ever met me. That's not what I asked. I know. He moved toward her, every step deliberate. You asked what I want. And what I want is to keep you, take you back to my land, to the ruins where you slept beside the wolf, and show you what it means to stop pretending. Show you what it feels like to be claimed by something wild. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could feel his heat. I want to kiss you until you forget Marcus Hale's name. Want to make you mine in every way that matters. Want to give you the freedom you've been dying for and the danger you don't know you're craving. Mhanit. Ilara's breath caught. Then do it. You don't mean that. Stop telling me what I mean. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him down to her eye level. I just walked away from my entire life. Climbed out a window and ran through the woods after a wolf because the alternative was suffocating. I'm not some delicate thing that needs protecting from herself. I'm a woman who's been making calculated decisions her whole life, and right now I'm calculating that spending one night as yours is worth whatever consequences come after. Rowan's control shattered. She saw it happen, the careful restraint he'd been maintaining crumbling like old stone. His hands cupped her face, fingers threading through her hair, and when he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was claiming. His mouth moved against hers like he was trying to consume her, all teeth and hunger and desperate need. Ilara kissed him back with equal ferocity, months of suppressed desire finding an outlet. This wasn't the careful, considerate affection Marcus had offered. This was raw, primal, real. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Rowan's eyes had gone full silver. Wolf eyes in a human face. Last chance, he said roughly. Walk away now, and I'll let you go. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. No. Ilara, I said no. She kissed him again, softer this time. I'm not walking away. Not from this. Not from you. Something shifted in his expression, surrender maybe, or acceptance. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, and she wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her deeper into the forest, away from civilization, away from safety, towards something she didn't have words for yet, They didn't make it to the ruins. Rowan pressed her against an ancient tree, kissing her throat, her collarbone, anywhere he could reach. Alara's hands found bare skin under his shirt, felt the scars she'd seen when he'd shifted. The evidence of violence survived. "Tell me to stop," he said against her neck. "Tell me this is insane and you want to go back." "It is insane." She pulled his mouth back to hers. "And I'm not going anywhere." But before it could go further, before they could cross whatever line they were racing toward, a sound cut through the forest, low and resonant and absolutely terrifying. A howl. Rowan went rigid. Alara felt every muscle in his body locked down, predatory instinct taking over. He lowered her carefully, put himself between her and the sound. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. "Don't run. Don't speak. Don't do anything to draw attention." "What is that?" "Company." His voice had changed, gotten dangerous. "The kind I was hoping wouldn't find us." 3 wolves emerged from the shadows. They were smaller than Rowan's wolf form, but moved with coordinated precision that spoke of training. Pack hunters. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. Amber, gold, red, not silver. Behind them came a woman. She was beautiful in a way that felt weaponized. Sharp features, dark hair, movements that combined grace and threat. When she smiled, it didn't reach her eyes. "Rowan Gray," she said, voice carrying easily through the clearing. "It's been a long time." "Mara." Rowan's tone was flat. "You're far from Packlands." "So are you." Her gaze slid to Alara, assessment cold and immediate. "And you've brought a human into our territory. How unexpected. This isn't Pack territory anymore. I bought this land. You have no claim here." "Don't we?" Mara moved closer, the wolves pacing with her. "You may have human paper that says this land is yours, but these forests belong to our kind long before borders and deeds. And you know the law, Rowan. Humans don't witness what she just witnessed." Ice flooded Alara's veins. "What are you talking about?" "The shift, darling." Mara's smile was all teeth. "You watched him change. That makes you a liability, a security risk." She looked at Rowan. "Unless you've claimed her, marked her as Pack, because that's the only way she gets to leave here alive. She's under my protection." "That's not the same as a claim." Mara stopped 10 feet away, head tilted. "You know what happens to humans who learn our secret without being bound by Pack law. You've seen it. Hell, you've done it yourself back before you went soft." "I was never part of your Pack." "No, you were part of something worse." Her expression shifted, became almost pitying. "The Gray legacy. How's that working out for you? Still fracturing, still losing time?" Rowan's hands had curled into fists. Alara could see him fighting for control, could practically feel the wolf trying to surface. "Leave, now, before this gets ugly." "It's already ugly." Mara gestured, and the 3 wolves spread out, flanking them. "You broke protocol, brought a human into our world without permission, without proper binding. The council will want answers. They'll want her testimony. And if you resist—" She shrugged. "Well, you know how these things go. Touch her and I'll kill you." "There's the Gray rage we all remember." Mara laughed, delighted. "So you do still have some of the old madness left. Good. I was worried you'd gone completely domestic." Alara had been standing silent, trying to process the nightmare her evening had become. But something about the way Mara talked, like Alara was a thing to be managed, disposed of, controlled, sparked the same rage that had carried her out of her family's estate. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she said clearly. "I don't care about your council or your laws. Rowan hasn't done anything wrong." All eyes turned to her. The wolves' gazes felt like physical weight. "How adorable," Mara said. "The human thinks she has a choice." She looked at Rowan. "Is she always this naive, or is it just for us?" "She's brave." Rowan's voice was quiet, but carried an edge that made the wolves shift nervously. "Which is more than I can say for Pack members who hunt in groups because they're too weak to stand alone." The temperature in the clearing dropped. Mara's pleasant expression evaporated, replaced by something cold and deadly. "Careful, Rowan. Your father used to talk like that. Right before he slaughtered half his own pack in a rage he couldn't control." She took a step forward. "You have his eyes. His madness. Everyone knows it's just a matter of time before you snap the same way. So maybe don't throw around accusations about weakness when you can barely hold your own mind together. Rowan moved faster than Alara could track. 1 second he was beside her, the next he had Mara by the throat, lifted off the ground. The wolves snarled, tense to attack, but froze when his eyes went full silver. "My father was a monster," Rowan said softly. "But at least he was honest about it. You hide behind pack politics and laws, pretending you're civilized, pretending you're better. But I know what you did to the humans who stumbled onto Packlands last year. I know about the bodies they never found." Mara's face had gone red, but she managed a strangled laugh. "Prove it." "I don't need to prove it. I just need you to understand that if you threaten her again, I will become everything you fear I am." He released her, let her drop. "Now get off my land before I forget I'm trying to be better than my bloodline." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Mara straightened, smoothing her clothes with precise movements. The pleasant mask slid back into place, but her eyes had gone flat. "This isn't over," she said. "The council will hear about this, about her. And when they come, and they will come, you'd better have a damn good explanation for why you're protecting a human who knows too much." "I'll be ready." Mara studied him, something calculating in her expression. Then she smiled again, sharp and knowing. "I wonder, does she know what claiming actually means, what it would cost her?" She looked at Alara. "Has he told you, sweetheart? What happens to humans who get bound to our kind?" "Leave," Rowan said. "Now." "They change." Mara's voice was sweet poison. "Not into wolves, that's impossible for humans, but into something else, something not quite human anymore. They live longer, heal faster, lose the ability to ever fully separate from the pack. It's a kind of death, really. Death of choice, death of freedom, death of everything that made them human." She backed toward the trees, wolves flowing around her like water. "Think about that, human. Think about whether running from one prison is worth ending up in another." Then they were gone, melting into the forest like shadows. Silence crashed down. Alara found she was shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline finally crashing. Rowan caught her before her legs gave out, pulled her against his chest. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry. I should have known they'd be watching, should have been more careful." "Is it true?" Alara pulled back enough to see his face. What she said about claiming. His jaw tightened. "It's more complicated than she made it sound." "That's not an answer." "I know." He closed his eyes briefly. "Yes, binding a human to pack changes them, makes them something between human and shifter. They can't shift, but they take on other attributes: longevity, enhanced healing, pack bonds that feel like chains sometimes. And once it's done, it can't be undone. You'd be tied to me, to my fractured bloodline for the rest of your life. And if we don't do it, if you don't claim me, then the council will see you as a security threat. They'll come for you. And I..." He looked at her, silver eyes full of something that might have been despair. "I won't be able to stop them all. Not alone. Not with my father's madness sleeping in my blood, waiting for the wrong moment to wake up." Alara processed this, the impossible choice she'd been handed. Go back to her old life and risk being hunted by monsters, or bind herself to Rowan and lose her humanity in exchange for survival. No. Not survival? Freedom. The wild, dangerous freedom she'd been craving without knowing it. "How long do I have to decide?" "Mara will report to the council by dawn. They'll send investigators within days." Rowan's hand came up, cupped her face. "I can hide you until then, keep you safe on my land. But once they arrive, the choice becomes binary: claim or execute. Those are terrible options." "I know." Alara looked at him, really looked. Saw the scars from battles he wouldn't talk about, the careful control hiding barely leashed violence, the way his eyes reflected light like an animal's. He was dangerous, damaged, exactly the kind of man her mother would lock her away for even considering, and she wanted him more than she'd wanted anything in her carefully controlled life. "Take me to the ruins," she said. "We'll figure out the rest in the morning." Something like relief crossed his features. He kissed her forehead, gentle, despite everything. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the most reckless. Can I be both?" His laugh was rough but genuine. "Yeah, You can be both. He shifted then, not fully, but enough that his form blurred, became stronger. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, and she wrapped her arms around his neck as he ran through the forest. Trees blurred past, wind whipped her hair, and for the first time since her sister's wedding, Alara felt something other than pain. She felt alive. They reached the ruins as the moon hit its peak. Rowan set her down carefully, and Alara looked at the crumbling stone that had sheltered her 3 nights ago. It felt like coming home. "There's a house," Rowan said, gesturing past the ruins. "About half a mile north. It's not much, but it's warm. Has running water, food. I'd rather stay here." "Alara, please." She turned to face him. "Just for tonight. Let me pretend we're not being hunted. Let me pretend this is simple." He studied her face, then nodded slowly. "Okay, just for tonight." They built a fire in the shelter of the walls. Rowan produced blankets from somewhere. He seemed to have supplies stashed all over his territory. And they sat close to the flames, not quite touching. "Tell me about your father," Alara said after a while. "About the madness Mara mentioned." Rowan was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "The gray bloodline is cursed, has been for generations. We're powerful shifters, stronger, faster, more dominant than normal wolves. But that power comes with a cost. Madness, rage, the inability to separate human and wolf until both sides fracture and you become something that's neither." What happened to him? He killed his entire pack in a single night, slaughtered them because his wolf side decided they were a threat. Rowan's voice was flat, reciting horror like facts. "I was 12. I watched him do it. Watched him tear apart people who'd been family, friends, pack. And when he was done, when he destroyed everything, he looked at me with human eyes and didn't remember any of it." Alara's throat tightened. "What happened to you?" "Ran. Survived. Learned to control the wolf because the alternative was becoming him." His hands had curled into fists. "But the fracturing's already started. I lose time sometimes. Wake up not knowing if I was human or wolf, what I did, who I might have hurt. It's why I bought this land. Isolated myself. Better to be alone than risk hurting people when I lose control. You haven't lost control with me. Not yet." He looked at her, and his expression was devastated. "But Mara was right. It's just a matter of time. And if you bind yourself to me, if you let me claim you, you'll be tied to that madness. Tied to a man who might wake up one day and not remember your name." The fire crackled between them. Alara reached out, took his scarred hand in hers. "My whole life, people have told me who to be, how to act, what to want. They've built cages out of expectations and called it love." She squeezed his fingers. "You're the first person who's ever treated me like I'm strong enough to make my own choices, even if those choices are dangerous, even if they might destroy me. That's not a reason to bind yourself to a cursed bloodline." "No, but loving you might be." Rowan's breath caught. "You don't love me. You barely know me. I know you saved me when you could have let me die. I know you gave me freedom when everyone else tried to cage me. I know when I look at you, I see someone as broken and fighting as I am." She moved closer until she could feel his warmth. "Maybe that's not love yet, but it could be, if we're brave enough." He pulled her against him then, buried his face in her hair. She felt him shaking, this powerful, dangerous man trembling like he was the one who needed saving. "If you do this," he said quietly, "if you let me claim you, there's no going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours. And whatever happens after, whatever madness comes, we face it together. Promise?" "Promise." Alara pulled back enough to kiss him, soft and sure. "Then claim me." His eyes went pure silver, wolf rising to the surface. "Not tonight. Not when you're running on adrenaline and fear. Ask me again in the morning when you've had time to think about what you're giving up." "I'm not giving anything up. I'm choosing what I want for the first time in my life." "Then prove it." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "Survive the night. Survive Mara's report and the council's investigation. Survive the scrutiny and the fear and everyone telling you you're insane. And if you still want this, want me, I'll give you the claiming. I'll bind you to my cursed bloodline and pray it doesn't destroy us both." Alara wanted to argue, wanted to demand he claim her now, tonight, before either of them could overthink it. but she saw the desperate hope in his eyes, the need to believe she wouldn't regret choosing him. So she nodded. Okay, I'll survive. We both will. They lay down together beside the fire, wrapped in blankets and each other. And as Alara drifted towards sleep, she heard it, distant but unmistakable. Howls. Multiple wolves, coming from the direction of the estate. The council had arrived early, and they were hunting. Rowan was on his feet before Alara's eyes fully opened, body already shifting into combat stance. The howls multiplied, 5, 6, maybe more, coming from multiple directions, surrounding them. They're not supposed to be here yet. His voice had gone flat, tactical. Mara must have contacted them before she even confronted us. Alara scrambled up, heart slamming against her ribs. What do we do? We run. He grabbed her hand, pulled her toward the north side of the ruins where the forest grew thicker. There's a ravine about 2 miles out. They won't be able to track us through the water. You said this was your land. Can't you just... Legal ownership means nothing to them. Pack law supersedes human law. He stopped, turned to face her. His eyes had gone full silver, wolf bleeding through. Listen to me. When we run, you stay directly behind me. Don't stop for anything. Don't look back. If I tell you to hide, you hide. If I tell you to run without me, I'm not leaving you. Alara. A wolf burst from the tree line. It was massive, bigger than the ones that had accompanied Mara, coat black as midnight with eyes like molten gold. It didn't hesitate, just launched itself at Rowan with jaws wide enough to crush bone. Rowan shoved Alara aside and met the attack head on, but he didn't shift, stayed human, used his bare hands to catch the wolf's throat, redirect its momentum. They went down in a tangle of limbs and fur, rolling across broken stone. 2 more wolves emerged from different angles. These were coordinated, practiced, pack hunters who'd done this before. Run! Rowan's shout was barely human anymore, his voice distorting as the wolf tried to surface. North! Don't stop! Alara ran. She crashed through underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. Behind her she heard snarls, the sound of impact, Rowan's voice rising in something between rage and pain. Every instinct screamed at her to go back, to help him, to not leave him fighting alone. But she'd learned enough about wolves to know she'd just be a liability, a target they could use against him. So she ran harder. The forest changed as she went deeper. The trees grew closer together, their roots creating a maze of obstacles. Moonlight barely penetrated the canopy, turning everything to shadow and suggestion. Alara's lungs burned. Her feet, still bare, left bloody prints on moss and stone. She heard something behind her, close, getting closer. Don't look back. Don't stop. The ravine appeared suddenly, a gash in the earth about 15 feet wide, water rushing at the bottom. Alara didn't slow down. She jumped. For a moment she was airborne, weightless, free. Then she hit water so cold it stopped her heart. The current grabbed her immediately, dragged her downstream. Alara fought to keep her head up, lungs screaming for air. Her shoulder slammed into a rock, sending white-hot pain through her body. She went under, swallowed water, came up choking. A hand caught her arm. Rowan hauled her out of the current, pulled her onto a narrow shelf of rock barely big enough for both of them. He was bleeding, deep gashes across his chest, his face, one arm hanging wrong, but he was alive. You jumped, he said, voice ragged. You actually jumped. You told me not to stop. Alara coughed up water, every breath agony. Are they following? Not through the water. Wolves hate deep currents. He was scanning the ravine walls, calculating. But they'll parallel us on both sides. Wait for us to come out. How many were there? 7 that I counted. Could be more. He pressed his hand against the worst wound on his chest, trying to slow the bleeding. The black one was Mara's mate, Dante. He's council trained. The others are his personal guard. Why didn't you shift? You could have fought them as the wolf. Something dark crossed his features. Because if I shift during combat, I might not shift back. The wolf takes over completely, and I become what my father was, mindless, violent, unable to distinguish friend from enemy. He looked at her, and his eyes had gone haunted. I won't risk that with you here. Alara realized what he was saying. He'd fought 7 trained wolves as a human because he was more afraid of losing control than losing the fight. We can't stay here, she said. You need medical attention. I'll heal. Shift your metabolism. But his voice was getting weaker, blood loss taking its toll. We just need to wait until dawn. They won't risk being seen in daylight. That's hours away. I know. They huddled together on the narrow ledge, water rushing below, darkness pressing in from all sides. Rowan's breathing had gone shallow, labored. Alara held him as carefully as she could, trying to keep him warm despite being soaked herself. Tell me about the house, she said, desperate to keep him conscious. The one you mentioned, half a mile north of the ruins. It's nothing special. Old cabin my grandfather built before the madness took him. His words were starting to slur. Fixed it up over the years. It's where I go when I need to remember what being human feels like. What's it like? Small. One room, fireplace, books everywhere because I can't stop collecting them. A ghost of a smile. You'd hate it. No cell service, no internet, just quiet. It sounds perfect. He looked at her, silver eyes dimming. You're lying to make me feel better. I'm really not. She brushed wet hair from his face. I spent my whole life in a mansion that felt like a museum. Every room decorated by professionals, every surface polished until you could see your reflection. It was beautiful and cold, and I hated every inch of it. She kissed his forehead. A small cabin with books sounds like exactly what I need. Alara, stay awake, Rowan. Please stay with me. But his eyes were closing, body going slack. The blood loss was too much, healing factor or not. Alara held him tighter, felt panic rising in her throat. A sound made her look up. Standing on the ravine's edge, silhouetted against the moon, was Mara. She wasn't alone. 6 wolves flanked her, the ones who'd attacked, plus 3 more. And beside her, in human form, stood Dante. He was beautiful in the same weaponized way Mara was, tall, dark-skinned, built like violence given form. When he smiled down at them, it was the smile of a predator who'd cornered its prey. This is disappointing, Rowan, he called down. His voice was cultured, almost gentle. I expected better from Gray's son. More fight, more of that legendary rage. Go to hell, Alara shouted up. Dante's eyebrows rose. The human has spirit. I can see why you're interested. He crouched at the edge, studying them. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to climb out of that ravine. You're going to come with us peacefully, and we're going to have a civilized conversation with the council about pack law and security protocols. And if we refuse, then we wait until Rowan bleeds out or loses consciousness, whichever comes first. Then we come down there and take you anyway. He tilted his head. The only difference is whether he's alive or dead when we do it. Alara looked at Rowan's pale face, the blood still seeping through his fingers despite his attempts to stop it. They had no cards to play, no leverage, no escape. How do I know you won't kill us anyway? You don't. Dante's honesty was almost refreshing. But I give you my word, as council enforcer, as Mara's mate, as someone who actually respects what Rowan could have been, that if you cooperate, you'll both make it to the council alive. What happens after that? He shrugged. That depends on what you tell them. It wasn't a good deal, but it was the only deal they had. Okay, Alara said. I'm coming up, but he needs help first. He's losing too much blood. Dante gestured, and one of the wolves shifted. The transformation was smoother than Rowan's had been, practiced, controlled. The man who emerged was younger, maybe early 20s, with medic patches on his jacket. Throw down a rope, Dante ordered. Get them both up here. And someone find Marcus. Tell him we found his missing bridesmaid. The name hit Alara like a physical blow. What does Marcus have to do with this? Mara's laugh was sharp, delighted. Oh, she doesn't know. Rowan, you really didn't tell her? Rowan's eyes opened just slightly. Mara, don't. Marcus Hale isn't just a tech billionaire, sweetheart. He's Pac, has been since birth. One of our best political operatives, actually. Why do you think he married into the Vance family? She smiled down at Alara. Your father's company, your family's connections, the merger everyone's talking about, it's all Pac business. And you? You were never supposed to be part of the equation. The world tilted. Alara's grip on Rowan tightened, her mind trying to process what she'd just heard. That's not possible. Marcus is human. I would have known. Would you? What do you actually know about shifters, about how we integrate into human society? Mara's voice was almost pitying. We've been hiding among you for centuries. Some of us shift, some of us just carry the genes. Marcus is a carrier, fully human, but pack-born, pack-loyal. His entire relationship with your sister was orchestrated. The wedding, the merger, all of it. The rope hit the water beside them. The medic was already rappelling down, moving with inhuman grace. He reached them quickly, started assessing Rowan's wounds with professional efficiency. "This is gonna hurt," he said quietly, then pressed something against Rowan's chest. Rowan's back arched, a strangled sound escaping his throat. But the bleeding slowed, then stopped. Whatever the medic had used was working faster than anything human medicine could provide. "Get him stabilized, then bring them both up," Dante ordered. "And someone call Marcus. Tell him we've got a situation." 20 minutes later, Alara was standing on solid ground, surrounded by wolves, watching the medic finish treating Rowan's wounds. Her mind was still reeling from Mara's revelation. Everything she'd believed about Marcus, about their relationship, about why he'd chosen Cassandra, it had all been a lie. He'd never loved either of them. He'd been playing a part. A vehicle approached through the forest, some kind of all-terrain truck that shouldn't have been able to navigate the terrain but did anyway. It stopped in a small clearing, and Marcus Hale stepped out. He looked exactly as he had at the wedding, polished, controlled, every inch the successful billionaire. But now Alara saw it differently, saw the predatory grace in how he moved, the way the wolves deferred to him slightly, the intelligence in his eyes that had nothing to do with human cunning. "Alara," he said her name like it hurt. "What the hell have you done?" "Me?" The laugh that escaped her was slightly unhinged. "I got lost in the woods, Marcus, that's all. Everything that happened after, the wolf, Rowan, all of this, that's not on me. You witnessed a shift. You ran from your family with a known rogue. He stopped, seemed to be fighting for control. "You have no idea what you've stepped into." "Then explain it to me." She stepped forward, ignoring the warning growls from the wolves. "Explain why you married my sister. Explain why you dated me first if it was all just pack business. Explain why any of this matters." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his perfect facade she'd ever seen. "The Vance family has something we need. Political connections, yes, but also—" He stopped, glanced at Dante. "This isn't the place." Make it the place," Alara demanded. "I'm already neck-deep in your world. I've been threatened, attacked, and apparently used as part of some long-term pack strategy I never knew existed. The least you can do is tell me why." "Your father," Marcus said finally. "Richard Vance is about to be appointed to a federal oversight committee, one that will have jurisdiction over protected wilderness areas across 3 states, including all the territory the northern packs call home." The pieces started falling into place. "You needed access to him, influence. We needed insurance that when he takes that position, he doesn't start approving development projects that would destroy pack lands." Marcus's voice had gone flat, businesslike. "Marrying into the family was the cleanest solution. Cassandra is the obvious choice. Beautiful, socially connected, exactly the kind of wife a man in my position should have. And I was what? The practice run? You were a mistake." The admission was quiet but brutal. "I wasn't supposed to notice you. Wasn't supposed to find your passion for sustainable architecture genuinely interesting, or enjoy our conversations, or think that maybe I could have the mission and something real." He looked away. "But then I met Cassandra, and she was exactly what the pack needed, and I remembered what I was actually there to do." Alara absorbed this, each word landing like a small death. "Did you ever actually like me? Or was that part of the act too?" "I liked you." Marcus met her eyes again. "I liked you so much it scared me. Because liking you meant wanting to tell you the truth, and telling you the truth meant violating pack law. So I took the coward's way out. I chose your sister, convinced myself it was for the mission, and tried not to think about how you looked at me at the wedding." "How I looked at you," Alara repeated. "You mean heartbroken, destroyed?" "I mean like I'd killed something in you." His jaw tightened. "And now you're here, tangled up with Rowan Gray of all people, knowing things you can't know, and I have to figure out how to fix this before the council decides the easiest solution is to eliminate the problem." They want to kill her! Rowan's voice was rough but stronger. The medic's treatment had worked. That's what this is about. Clean up the security breach. The council wants answers, Dante interjected. What we do with those answers depends entirely on what they are. Then let's go get some answers. Marcus gestured toward the truck. Everyone in. We're going to the old meeting grounds. The council's already assembled. They drove in tense silence. Alara sat between Rowan and the medic, Marcus in the passenger seat, Dante driving. The wolves had melted back into the forest. They'd parallel the truck, staying close, but out of sight. Rowan's hand found hers in the darkness. She squeezed it, drew what comfort she could from the contact. His wounds had closed to angry red lines, healing impossibly fast. But she could feel him shaking slightly, aftermath of blood loss or fear, or both. Whatever happens, he said quietly, too low for the others to hear, don't let them separate us. The claiming is the only protection you have. If they try to take you, I'll fight. No, you'll accept it. His silver eyes were fierce. You let me claim you, and you become Pack, untouchable by anyone except through proper challenge. It's the only way you survive this. What about you? I'm already dead to them, have been since I walked away from my father's legacy. His smile was bitter. But you're innocent in this. You deserve to live. The truck stopped before Alara could respond. They'd arrived at what looked like an ancient amphitheater, stone seats carved into a natural bowl, a flat area at the center, everything overgrown with moss and vines. It was old, older than the ruins where she'd slept, old enough that it predated modern civilization. This was Pack territory in its purest form. Wolves lined the upper seats, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, their eyes reflecting the moonlight like stars. And at the center, in human form, stood 5 figures. The council. They were all older, 60s or 70s in human terms, though Alara suspected they'd lived much longer. 3 men, 2 women, each radiating an authority that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with power. The woman in the center stepped forward. She was small, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen centuries pass. When she spoke, her voice carried effortlessly across the amphitheater. Rowan Gray, you stand accused of exposing Pack secrets to a human without authorization. How do you answer? Rowan stepped forward, pulling away from Alara, despite her attempt to hold on. Guilty. A ripple went through the assembled wolves. Alara's heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to just admit it. He was supposed to fight, to argue, and you did this knowingly? Understanding the consequences? Yes. The councilwoman's expression didn't change. Then you understand that the prescribed punishment is death, for both you and the human witness. I do. Rowan, what are you doing? Alara tried to move forward, but the medic caught her arm, held her back. However, Rowan continued, voice steady, I invoke ancient right, the law of claiming. Silence crashed down like a physical force. The councilwoman's eyes narrowed. You wish to claim the human? Bind her to your bloodline? Yes. The gray bloodline is cursed, Rowan. You know this. Claiming her would sentence her to the same madness that destroyed your father, your grandfather, every gray male for 5 generations. Her voice was almost gentle. Is that really the mercy you want to show her? It's the only chance I can give her. He turned, looked back at Alara. She deserves to choose her own fate, not have it decided by council law. The woman studied him for a long moment, then turned her attention to Alara. Come forward, human. Alara walked into the center of the amphitheater on shaking legs. Hundreds of wolves watched her, and she felt the weight of their combined stare like gravity. What is your name? Alara Vance. Alara Vance? Do you understand what Rowan Gray is offering you? I understand that he's trying to save my life. That's not what I asked. The woman moved closer, and Alara saw that her eyes were amber, deep and old and knowing. The claiming ritual will bind you to him. Change your body at a cellular level. Make you something between human and wolf, with all the complications that entails. You'll live longer than normal humans, heal from injuries that would kill your kind, feel pack bonds like chains connecting you to our world. And most critically, you'll inherit the gray curse. The madness that sleeps in their blood will sleep in yours too. I understand. Do you? The woman's voice sharpened. Because Rowan's father killed 43 pack members in a single night when the madness took him. His grandfather slaughtered his own children. The gray line is soaked in blood and insanity, and you're volunteering to join it. I know what I'm choosing. Then tell me why. It wasn't a request. Tell me why a human woman with wealth and education and an entire life ahead of her would willingly bind herself to a cursed bloodline and a man she barely knows. Alara looked at Rowan, at his silver eyes and scarred face and the desperate hope he was trying to hide. She thought about her life before, the suffocating expectations, the slow death of pretending, the way she'd been erasing herself piece by piece to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. Then she thought about the forest, the wolf, the feeling of finally being able to breathe. Because he's the first person who ever made me feel free, she said quietly. Because when I was drowning in a life that was killing me, he showed me there was another way. Because I've spent 28 years being what everyone else needed me to be, and I'm done. I'd rather die mad and free than live sane and caged. The councilwoman's expression shifted, just slightly, but Alara caught it. Something almost like approval. Very well. If Rowan Gray wishes to claim you and you consent to be claimed, then by ancient law we cannot prevent it. She turned to address the assembled wolves. Let it be witnessed. Alara Vance accepts the claiming. Whatever consequences follow are hers to bear. She stepped back, leaving Alara and Rowan alone in the center of the amphitheater. Rowan moved toward her slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. Last chance to run. I'm not running. The ritual is going to hurt. The change. It's not like shifting. It's slower, deeper. Your body will fight it because it doesn't understand what's happening. I don't care. Alara, stop trying to scare me away. She grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Whatever comes after, we face it together. Remember? His control broke. He kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning, like she was the only thing keeping him human. She kissed him back with equal desperation, both of them clinging to each other in front of hundreds of witnesses who'd come to watch them either bind together or die. When they broke apart, his eyes had gone full silver, wolf bleeding through. Kneel, he said softly, and don't fight what comes next. Alara knelt. Rowan's hand settled on her shoulder, then moved to her throat. Not threatening, marking, claiming. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and she felt something shift in the air around them. Power, old and wild and dangerous. By blood and bone, by moon and stone, I claim you, he said, the words clearly ritual. From this moment until your last breath, you are mine to protect, mine to defend, mine to... He stopped. His entire body went rigid. Alara looked up and saw his expression change, saw the human consciousness bleeding out of his eyes, replaced by something else, something that didn't recognize her. The wolf had taken over. Rowan? She kept her voice calm, non-threatening. Rowan, stay with me. But the hand on her throat tightened, not enough to cut off air, but enough to send a clear message. The wolf didn't know her, saw her as a threat or prey or something to be eliminated. Someone stop him, Marcus shouted from the edge of the amphitheater. He's losing control. No one interferes. The councilwoman's voice cut through the panic. The claiming must complete or fail on its own. Alara stared up at the wolf wearing Rowan's face. His pupils had dilated completely, swallowing the silver. His breathing had changed, faster, shallower, predatory. This was what Mara had warned her about, what Rowan had feared. The madness. She had seconds, maybe less, before he killed her. I'm not afraid of you, she said quietly, lying through her teeth but selling it anyway. You brought me to the ruins, kept me safe, gave me blankets and led me through the forest. She reached up slowly, placed her hand over his where it gripped her throat. I know you, both sides of you, human and wolf, and I'm not afraid. The wolf's grip tightened. Alara's vision started to blur at the edges, oxygen running out. Around them she heard wolves shifting, preparing to intervene despite the council's order. But she didn't look away from those inhuman eyes. Rowan, she whispered, come back to me. For a long moment, nothing changed. Then, so subtle she almost missed it, his pupils contracted, just slightly, just enough. Recognition. The pressure on her throat eased. The wolf's breathing slowed, and slowly, impossibly, Rowan's human consciousness clawed its way back to the surface. Alara! His voice was destroyed, barely human. I almost… But you didn't. She pulled his hand from her throat, pressed it against her chest where her heart was hammering. You came back. You chose to come back. The ritual. He looked around, disoriented. Did I complete it? The councilwoman stepped forward, and for the first time Alara saw genuine surprise on her ancient face. You broke through the fracture, pulled yourself back from full dissolution. She studied Rowan like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. In 5 generations of Greys, no one has ever done that. What does that mean? It means the claiming is incomplete. You stopped before the final binding. She looked between them, which means the human is still unmarked, still vulnerable to council law. Alara felt the ground drop out from under her. So this was all for nothing? Not nothing. The woman's expression had shifted to something calculating. You proved something important. You proved that Rowan Gray can pull back from the edge, that maybe, just maybe, the curse that's defined his bloodline for generations isn't absolute. She paused. That changes things. Changes them how? Marcus had moved closer, his lawyer instincts clearly activated. Pack law is built on precedent and proof. If Rowan can demonstrate control, real, consistent control, then his bloodline might not be the liability we've always assumed it was. She addressed Rowan directly. Complete the claiming, bind her properly, and if you can maintain control through the entire ritual without fracturing again, we'll reconsider your rogue status. And if I can't, then you both die. Here. Tonight. Her voice was matter-of-fact. Those are the only 2 options available. Rowan looked at Alara, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. The desperate desire to save her fighting against the terror of losing control again. Do it, Alara said. Whatever happens, I'm already in this. Might as well go all the way. You almost died 30 seconds ago. But I didn't. You pulled back. You chose me over the madness. She stood, faced him fully. So do it again. Choose me. Choose us. And let's show them that their curse doesn't own you. Around them, the wolves had gone silent. Hundreds of witnesses holding their collective breath, waiting to see if a gray male could finally break the pattern that had defined them for generations. Rowan's hands came up, cupped her face. His eyes were still silver, but clearer now, more present. If I hurt you, you won't. You can't know that. I know you. She covered his hands with hers. So finish what you started. Claim me. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. She felt him shaking, fear or need, or both. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to that ritual cadence. By blood and bone, by moon and stone, I claim you. From this moment until your last breath, you are mine to protect, mine to defend, mine to cherish above all others. The power that had flickered before came roaring back, stronger this time. It wrapped around them like living heat, seeping into Alara's skin. She gasped as sensation flooded her body, pain and pleasure, and something indefinable. Her cells were changing, rewriting themselves. Do you accept this claim? Rowan's voice was strained, like speaking cost him everything. I accept. Do you bind yourself to me, knowing the cost, understanding the curse, choosing this freely? I bind myself to you, freely, completely. Her voice was getting harder to control, the power doing things to her nervous system that shouldn't have been possible. Whatever curse you carry, we carry it together. Then let it be done. He bit her, not on the throat. That would have been too dangerous, too close to killing. Instead, he bit the junction where her neck met her shoulder, teeth breaking skin. The pain was sharp, immediate, but beneath it Alara felt something else. A connection forming, a bond snapping into place like a circuit completing. The world exploded into sensation. She felt Rowan's heartbeat like it was her own. Felt his fear, his desperate love, his white-knuckled control holding the wolf at bay. Felt the curse in his blood, ancient, hungry, waiting, and felt her own body rise to meet it. Accept it. Transform it. Her back arched. Power flooded through her in waves, remaking her from the inside out. She heard someone screaming, realized distantly it was her, but couldn't stop. The change burned through her like wildfire, like evolution compressed into seconds. Then as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Alara collapsed against Rowan, both of them shaking. The bite mark on her shoulder had already stopped bleeding, healing impossibly fast. She could feel it, the change in her body, the new awareness thrumming through her veins. She was packed now, bound, claimed, changed. It's done. The councilwoman's voice seemed to come from very far away. The claiming is complete. Alara looked up at the assembled wolves and saw something shift in their expressions. They weren't looking at her like a human anymore. They were looking at her like she was one of them. "How do you feel?" Rowan asked quietly, still holding her like he was afraid she'd shatter. "Like I can hear everything, feel everything." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "Your heartbeat, the wolves watching us, the forest breathing around us." She touched her shoulder where he'd bitten her. "Is it always like this?" The awareness fades a bit, becomes background noise instead of overwhelming. He studied her face, looking for signs of regret. "Are you okay?" "I don't know yet." Honest answer, the truest one she had. "Ask me again in a week." A sound made them both turn. Cassandra stood at the edge of the amphitheater. She looked wrong here, perfectly human, perfectly polished, completely out of place among the wolves. Marcus was beside her, his expression carefully neutral. But Cassandra's face showed everything: shock, fury, and something that might have been betrayal. "What have you done?" Her sister's voice was barely controlled. "Alara, what the hell have you done?" Alara stood slowly, Rowan rising with her. The bond between them was new and strange, but she could already feel his protective instincts rising. She put a hand on his arm. This conversation was hers to have. "I made a choice, Cassie. For the first time in my life, I chose what I wanted instead of what everyone else needed from me." "You joined them. You became—" Cassandra gestured at the wolves surrounding them, disgust clear in every line of her body. "You became a monster. I became free. You became property. His property." Her sister looked at Rowan with pure hatred. "I know what claiming means. Marcus explained it to me after we got married. You belong to him now. You're not even fully human anymore." "You're right." Alara felt the truth of it settling into her bones. "I'm not fully human. I'm something else, something better." "Better?" Cassandra laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "You think being bound to a cursed bloodline, to a man who almost killed you 5 minutes ago, makes you better? Better than spending the rest of my life pretending to be happy in a world that was slowly suffocating me?" "Yes." Alara took a step forward. "Better than watching you take everything I ever wanted and smile through it? Absolutely. I didn't take Marcus. He was never yours. I know that now." Alara glanced at Marcus, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Turns out our entire relationship was pack business. Just another piece of your perfect life that was built on lies." "That's not fair," Marcus started, but Alara cut him off. "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" She was shaking now, months of suppressed rage finally breaking free. "You dated me to get close to my family. You married my sister to secure pack influence, and neither of you thought to mention that I was just a pawn in whatever political game you're playing. We were trying to protect you," Cassandra said. "Keep you out of pack business, let you live a normal life." "I didn't want a normal life. I wanted the truth." Alara gestured at the amphitheater, the wolves, the impossible world she'd stumbled into. "And now I have it. All of it, including the parts you tried to hide from me." The councilwoman cleared her throat. "This family drama is touching, but irrelevant. The claiming is complete. Alara Vance is now Alara Gray, bound to Rowan by pack law." She looked at Marcus. "Which means your connection to the Vance family remains unchanged. Your marriage still stands. Your mission continues." "And what about the council's ruling on Rowan?" Marcus asked. "He completed the ritual without fracturing, proved he can control the curse. That should count for something. It counts for a stay of execution." The woman's voice was cold. "But proving control once, under extreme circumstances, isn't the same as proving consistent stability. Rowan will remain under observation. Any sign that the madness is progressing, any hint that he's becoming what his father was, and the execution order stands." "How long?" Rowan asked. "1 year. If you can maintain control for 1 year, no fracturing, no unexplained lost time, no violence without cause, we'll consider fully reinstating your pack status." She paused. "But if you fail, Alara dies with you. That's the cost of binding yourself to a cursed bloodline. The pronouncement hung in the air like a death sentence. 1 year to prove he could control something that had destroyed every gray male before him. 1 year before Alara's choice either saved them both or killed them. "We accept the terms," Rowan said quietly. "Do we?" Alara looked at him. Through the new bond, she could feel his fear, his certainty that he'd sentenced her to death. "Because I don't remember agreeing to a 1-year trial period." "Alara, no. If we're doing this, we're doing it on our terms, not theirs." She turned to face the council. "You want proof that the Grey Curse can be controlled? Fine. Give us the year. But don't act like you're doing us a favor. You're scared. All of you. You're scared that if Rowan can break the pattern, it means everything you believe about cursed bloodlines and genetic madness might be wrong." Silence. Then the councilwoman actually smiled, small but genuine. "You have spirit. I can see why he chose you." She inclined her head slightly. "Very well. 1 year. Prove us wrong, Alara Grey. Show us that love and will can overcome centuries of genetic curse. We'll be watching." The wolves began to disperse, melting back into the forest. The council members shifted and ran, their massive forms disappearing into darkness. Within minutes, only a few stragglers remained. Marcus and Cassandra, Dante and Mara, the medic who'd treated Rowan. "This isn't over," Cassandra said, but her voice had lost its edge. She just sounded tired. "Mom and Dad are going to lose their minds when they find out." "Then don't tell them," Alara suggested. "Tell them I ran off, had a breakdown. Anything you want. I'm done living for their approval." Her sister stared at her for a long moment, something complicated passing across her features. "You really mean that?" "I really do. You're going to regret this. When the madness comes, when he turns on you, then I'll deal with it. But at least I'll have lived first." Alara took Rowan's hand, felt the bond between them pulse with warmth. "Go back to your perfect life, Cassie. I'm done trying to compete with you." Cassandra opened her mouth, closed it. Then she turned and walked away, Marcus following. At the edge of the amphitheater, he looked back once, met Alara's eyes across the distance. "I really did like you," he said quietly. "For what that's worth." "It's worth nothing," but she said it without heat. "Have a nice life, Marcus." Then they were gone, and Alara was alone with Rowan in the ancient amphitheater, bound together by forces neither of them fully understood, facing a future that would either prove everyone wrong or destroy them both. "So," she said, aiming for casual and missing by miles, "how does it feel to have a cursed bride?" Rowan pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the only real thing in a world gone mad. "Ask me in a year." "Deal." They stood there in the moonlight, two broken people who'd chosen each other over safety, bound by a claiming that should have killed them both. And somewhere in the forest, wolves watched and waited to see if love could really overcome a 5-generation curse, or if Alara Grey had just signed her own death warrant. The cabin was exactly as Rowan had described it. Small, rough, honest. One room with a massive stone fireplace, shelves overflowing with books, windows that looked out onto forest so thick it felt like being inside a living thing. Alara stood in the doorway, her new senses cataloging everything. The scent of old wood and pine, the sound of water running somewhere nearby, the feel of Rowan's presence beside her like a second heartbeat. "It's not much," he said, that careful uncertainty creeping into his voice. "It's perfect." And she meant it. After a lifetime in the Vance mansion with its museum-quality furniture and soulless perfection, this felt real, lived in, safe. She walked inside, her bare feet, still bare. Somehow she'd survived the entire night without shoes, finding worn floorboards that creaked in places. The bond hummed between them, feeding her information she didn't know how to process yet. Rowan's exhaustion, his lingering fear, the way his wolf was finally settling, sated by the claiming. "You need to sleep," she said, turning to face him. "You're about to collapse." "So are you." "I know, but I heal faster now, right? That's part of the deal?" She touched the bite mark on her shoulder, already scabbed over when it should have taken days. "This should be worse." Accelerated healing is one of the benefits, along with increased strength, better senses, longer lifespan. He moved to the fireplace, started building a fire with practiced efficiency. "The downsides are pack bonds you can't break, heightened aggression during full moons, and in your case, sharing my curse. Alara watched him work, noticed the slight tremor in his hands. Aftermath of the claiming or fear of what he'd bound her to? Tell me about lost time. You mentioned it before. Rowan's shoulders tensed. Sometimes I shift and don't remember shifting. Wake up miles from where I went to sleep with no memory of how I got there. Could be hours, could be days. Has it happened recently? Not in 6 months, but before that, he struck the match, held it to kindling. Before that, it was happening weekly. I'd lose whole nights, find evidence that the wolf had been hunting, killing, doing things I couldn't control. What changed 6 months ago? Nothing. It just stopped. The fire caught, flames licking at larger logs. Which scares me more than when it was happening, because I don't know if I actually gained control or if it's just building to something worse. Alara absorbed this, the reality of what she'd committed to settling into her bones. 1 year to prove the curse could be controlled. 1 year before the council decided if they lived or died. We'll figure it out. You keep saying that like it's possible. It is possible. You pulled yourself back tonight. In front of hundreds of witnesses, you fractured and came back. She crossed to him, knelt beside the growing fire. That's not nothing, Rowan. That's proof the curse doesn't own you completely. Or it's proof I got lucky once. But he pulled her closer, buried his face in her hair. Through the bond, she felt his desperate need to believe her. What if I can't do it again? What if next time I fracture, I kill you? Then at least I'll have lived first. Really lived. She pulled back to look at him. I spent 28 years being afraid. Afraid of disappointing my parents. Afraid of not measuring up to Cassandra. Afraid of wanting things I couldn't have. I'm done being afraid. You should be afraid of this. Of me. But I'm not. She kissed him, soft and sure. So either accept that I'm brave or stupid, and let's move on. His laugh was rough but genuine. Both. You're definitely both. They slept tangled together in front of the fire, too exhausted to make it to the bed in the loft. Alara's dreams were strange, full of running through forests, seeing in colors that didn't exist, feeling the pull of moon and pack like gravity. She woke once to find Rowan watching her, silver eyes reflecting firelight. Can't sleep? She asked, trying to memorize this, just in case. In case what? In case I lose it. Lose myself. I want to remember what it felt like to have you here, safe, before I became the monster everyone expects. Alara's chest tightened. She'd never heard anyone sound so resigned to their own destruction. You're not going to lose yourself. I won't let you. That's not how it works. Then we'll make it work differently. She sat up, the blanket falling away. What if the curse isn't what everyone thinks it is? What if it's not inevitable madness, but something else? Like what? I don't know yet. But every curse has rules, right? Patterns. If we can figure out what triggers the fracturing, maybe we can prevent it. Rowan was quiet for a long moment. My father's episodes always came during challenges, when other wolves questioned his authority when he felt threatened. His voice had gone distant, remembering. The wolf would take over to protect dominance, to eliminate threats before they could eliminate him. So it's defensive. Survival instinct taken too far. Maybe. Or maybe the madness just used threats as an excuse to surface. He pulled her back down against him. 5 generations of Greys have tried to solve this. What makes you think we'll succeed where they failed? Because they were trying alone, and we're not. The fire crackled. Outside, the forest breathed. And slowly, Rowan's arms relaxed around her, his breathing evening out into sleep. Alara lay there listening to his heartbeat through the bond, feeling the curse sleeping in his blood like something alive and waiting. They'd figure this out. They had to. The first week was brutal. Alara's body was still adjusting to the changes, her senses overwhelming her with information she didn't know how to filter. Everything was too loud, too bright, too intense. She could hear Rowan's heartbeat from across the cabin, smell the approach of rain hours before it arrived, feel the presence of wolves moving through the forest miles away. It gets easier, Rowan told her on the 3rd day, when she'd spent 20 minutes trying to tune out the sound of her own blood moving through her veins. Your brain will learn to filter. Right now, it's trying to process input it was never designed to handle. How long does that take? For most pack-born, A few weeks? For claimed humans? He hesitated. I don't actually know. It's rare enough that there's not a lot of data. Great. So I'm a medical anomaly. You're adapting faster than I expected, actually. Most humans would still be unconscious from the shock. Most humans probably had better sense than to get claimed by a cursed bloodline. Probably. But despite the overwhelming sensory input, Ilara pushed herself. She learned to hunt, or tried to, her instincts warring with a lifetime of buying meat in sanitized packages. She learned to navigate the forest by smell and sound instead of sight, learned to feel Rowan's location through the bond even when he was out of sight. And she started asking questions. Tell me about the council, she said one night over dinner. Rowan had caught fish, and she'd managed not to be completely useless gathering wild herbs. The resulting meal was simple, but tasted better than anything her family's private chef had ever served. How do they actually operate? 5 members, each representing a major pack alliance. They set law, mediate disputes, authorize territorial claims, he paused, and they eliminate threats to pack secrecy. Like humans who know too much. Like humans who know too much, he confirmed. Pack survival depends on staying hidden from your kind. We can't have humans learning that shifters exist and deciding we're too dangerous to coexist with. But Marcus exists. He's pack-born but fully human, integrated into society. How does that work? Carriers like Marcus are the bridge. Human enough to pass completely in your world, pack enough to maintain loyalty to our laws. They handle politics, business, any interface that requires long-term presence in human institutions. Rowan studied her face. Why the sudden interest in pack structure? Because if we're going to prove you can control the curse, we need to understand the system we're fighting against. The council didn't just agree to a 1-year trial because you completed the claiming. They're testing something, watching for something. Watching to see if I snap, maybe. Or maybe watching to see if I can do what no one else has done, survive being bound to a gray. Ilara set down her fork. Think about it. Mara said carriers are rare but valuable. What if claimed humans who survive the transformation are even more rare? More valuable? You think the council wants you to succeed? I think some of them do. That woman, the one who spoke for the council, she didn't look at me like a threat. She looked at me like an investment. Rowan absorbed this, something shifting in his expression. Her name is Adelaide. She's the oldest member, leads the Northern Alliance. And you're right. She's not just enforcing law, she's gathering data. On what? On whether the gray curse can be broken. Whether binding a human to our bloodline might actually stabilize it instead of spreading the madness. He reached across the table, took her hand. My father never claimed anyone. Neither did his father. They stayed isolated, tried to contain the curse by refusing to spread it. What if that was the wrong approach? Ilara felt pieces clicking together. What if the curse feeds on isolation? Gets worse when you're alone? That's a theory, one we have a year to prove or disprove. Then we'd better get started. Over the next weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Rowan taught her how to navigate pack politics through careful observation. They'd visit the edges of pack territories, never crossing but getting close enough that Ilara could practice sensing pack bonds, learning to read the subtle hierarchies that governed wolf society. She taught him how to apply human business strategy to pack problems, using her architecture background to help him map territorial disputes and resource distribution. It was during one of these mapping sessions, spread out on the cabin floor with charts and notes, that the first fracture happened. Rowan went still in the middle of marking a boundary line. His pencil fell from suddenly nerveless fingers. Ilara felt it through the bond, a sharp disconnect, like someone had cut a wire. Rowan? She kept her voice calm, non-threatening. What's happening? His eyes had started to shift, silver bleeding into something more wolfish. I'm not. Stay with me. Focus on my voice. She moved slowly, put herself in his line of sight. Tell me what you're feeling. Nothing. I feel nothing. His voice was wrong, flat. Where am I? You're home. In the cabin. With me. Ilara's heart was racing, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, knowing he could probably sense her fear. You were mapping territories, do you remember? I remember. Hunting, blood, running under moonlight. His head tilted, studying her like she was prey. Who are you? The wolf had taken over. Completely. Just like his father. Every instinct screamed at Alara to run, to get away from the predator wearing Rowan's face. But running meant failure, meant proving everyone right, meant death. So instead, she did something insane. She stepped closer. My name is Alara. I'm your mate. You claimed me 3 weeks ago in front of the council. She kept her voice steady, projecting confidence she didn't feel. And right now, you're fracturing, losing time, becoming what you're afraid of. But I'm here, and I'm not afraid of you. The wolf snarled. You should be. Maybe. But I'm not. She reached out slowly, placed her hand over his heart. Through the bond, she could feel the chaos inside him, human and wolf consciousness fragmenting, fighting for dominance, neither winning. You're in there somewhere, buried, fighting to get back. So fight harder. Can't. The word was barely human. Lost. Too far gone. Bullshit. You came back during the claiming. You can come back now. She pressed harder, let her own fear bleed through the bond deliberately. Feel that? That's me. Terrified that I'm about to watch you disappear. Terrified that I made the wrong choice. Use it. Use my fear as an anchor. Find your way back to me. For a long moment, nothing changed. Then, impossibly, his hand came up, covered hers where it rested on his chest. Alara. Her name said in his real voice. Broken and desperate, but real. That's it. Keep coming back. Stay with me. She felt the shift through the bond, consciousness reintegrating, the fracture slowly healing. It took minutes that felt like hours, both of them shaking by the end. When Rowan's eyes finally cleared completely, showing full awareness and horror at what had just happened, he tried to pull away. She didn't let him. How long? He asked hoarsely. How long was I gone? Maybe 2 minutes, 3 at most. It felt like hours. I was in the forest, hunting deer, tasting blood. I couldn't remember the cabin, couldn't remember you, couldn't... He stopped, jaw clenching. This is what happens. This is the curse, and it's only going to get worse. You came back. This time. What about next time? What if next time I'm gone for hours, and I hurt you before you can reach me? Then we figure out how to prevent next time. Alara pulled him to the couch, forced him to sit. What were you thinking about right before you fractured? What triggered it? Rowan closed his eyes, clearly trying to remember. The territorial maps. We were marking the boundary where my father's pack used to control territory before... He stopped. Before he slaughtered them. So it was emotional. A memory. Connection to trauma. Maybe. Or maybe it was just random. The curse doesn't need a reason. Everything has a reason. We just need to find the pattern. She grabbed her notebook, started writing. Episode 1. During the claiming, when you had to assert dominance in front of the council. Episode 2. Just now, when you were confronting memories of your father's territory. Both involve pack dynamics, authority, legacy. That's not enough data to establish a pattern. So we'll gather more data. Every time you fracture, we document it. Time, duration, trigger, how you came back. We turn this into a problem we can solve instead of a curse we just endure. Rowan stared at her like she'd suggested they build a rocket ship. You want to systematically analyze my mental breakdown? I want to turn it into something we understand, something we can predict and control. She met his eyes. You're a gray. This is your birthright, your burden, whatever. But you're also you, intelligent, capable, stronger than this curse. So let's stop treating it like inevitable doom and start treating it like the solvable problem it is. And if it's not solvable, then at least we'll know we tried everything before giving up. She squeezed his hand. But I don't think it's unsolvable. I think 5 generations of Greys tried to fight this alone, in isolation, drowning in shame and fear. And I think that's exactly what made it worse. Something shifted in Rowan's expression. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of it. You really believe that? I really do, and I think the council does too. That's why Adelaide gave us a year instead of just executing you. She wants to see if I can break the pattern. That's a lot of pressure. Good thing I'm used to pressure. Alara pulled him closer, let him rest his head on her shoulder. We've got this, Rowan. Together. They sat like that for a while, the fire crackling, the bond between them pulsing with warmth and determination and the first fragile threads of real hope. Word of the claiming spread through pack territories faster than Alara expected. Within a month, they started getting visitors, wolves who'd traveled from distant packs to see the human who'd survived binding to the gray bloodline. Some were curious, some were hostile. All of them were watching, waiting to see if she'd survive or if the curse would consume them both. The first real test came when Dante showed up unannounced. Alara was outside gathering firewood when she felt his presence through the bond, foreign, dominant, testing. She turned to find him standing at the tree line in human form, Mara beside him. "Ilara Gray," Dante said, that cultured voice somehow making her new name sound like an accusation. "You're looking well. No signs of madness yet. It's only been 5 weeks. Give it time." She kept her voice light, non-confrontational. "Did you come all this way to check on my mental health?" "We came because the council wants an update. Adelaide sent us to assess your progress." Mara stepped forward, eyes calculating. "Where's Rowan?" "Hunting. He'll be back soon." Lie. Rowan was actually in the cabin, documenting his latest fracture episode. A brief one, only 90 seconds, triggered by the sound of wolves howling in the distance. But Dante and Mara didn't need to know about the fractures. Not yet. Convenient. Dante walked closer, and Alara felt the urge to retreat. Pack dynamics. He was dominant. She was newly claimed. Her instincts said, submit. "Tell me, how many episodes has he had? How many times has he lost himself?" "None." The lie came smooth, practiced. "He's been completely stable." "Really?" Mara circled her like prey. "Because we heard from border patrols that there have been unusual wolf signs in this territory. Erratic behavior, evidence of fractured consciousness." Alara's heart rate spiked, but she kept her expression neutral. "Rowan maintains his territory. That includes dealing with rogues and trespassers. Maybe your patrols are seeing exactly what they expect to see." "Maybe." Dante stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Or maybe you're lying to protect him, covering up episodes because you know the truth, that the curse is progressing, that it's only a matter of time before he becomes what his father was." Through the bond, Alara felt Rowan approaching. He'd sensed the confrontation, was coming fast. She needed to diffuse this before he arrived and confirmed everything Dante suspected. "You want to know the truth?" She stepped forward instead of back, invading Dante's space the way she'd learned dominant wolves did. "The truth is Rowan is stronger than any of you give him credit for. The truth is your curse theory is based on Greys who tried to fight this alone, who isolated themselves until the madness was all they had left. And the truth is I'm not going to let that happen to him." Bold words from a human who's been packed for barely a month. "I'm not human anymore. You made sure of that when your council forced the claiming." She held his stare, refusing to back down. "I'm pack now. Rowan's pack. And if you threaten him, you threaten me. So either acknowledge that we're doing exactly what you wanted, testing whether the curse can be broken, or admit you're here hoping to see us fail." Silence stretched between them. Then Mara laughed, sharp and surprised. "She's got teeth," Mara said to Dante. "I like it. The council didn't send you to like her. They sent us to assess." But Dante's expression had shifted slightly. "Fine. You want to prove the curse can be broken. Prove it. The autumn gathering is in 6 weeks. Every major pack will be there. Hundreds of wolves, complex politics, challenges to authority happening constantly. That's where Rowan will fracture, if he's going to fracture. Survive that without an episode, and maybe we'll believe you're making progress." "We'll be there." "You sure about that?" "Because Rowan hasn't attended a gathering in 8 years. Not since he walked away from his father's legacy." Dante stepped back, heading toward the trees. "And the last time a Grey attended a major gathering, 43 wolves died. You really want to risk a repeat?" They left before Alara could respond, melting into the forest. Seconds later, Rowan emerged from the opposite direction, silver eyes tracking where Dante and Mara had disappeared. "You shouldn't have engaged with them," he said quietly. "Dante's dangerous. If he decided you were a threat, he didn't. And I wasn't engaging. I was establishing boundaries." Alara dropped the firewood, moved to his side. "They want us at the autumn gathering, said it's the real test." "Absolutely not. Gatherings are chaos. Too many dominance challenges, too much pack politics. I'd fracture within hours." "Or you wouldn't." We have been documenting your episodes. Most of them are triggered by specific emotional states, memories of your father, confrontations about authority, isolation. She took his hand, laced their fingers together. What if being surrounded by pack with me there as an anchor actually helps instead of hurts? That's a massive risk. Everything we're doing is a massive risk, but hiding here, avoiding pack society, that's what your father did. Your grandfather. Every gray who came before you, and it didn't save any of them. She squeezed his fingers. 6 weeks. We have 6 weeks to prepare, to understand your triggers well enough that we can manage them in a high-stress environment. And if we can't, then we don't go. But I think we can. I think you're stronger than you believe. And I think it's time we proved it to everyone watching. Rowan looked at her for a long moment, something complicated passing across his features. You're asking me to walk into my worst nightmare. I'm asking you to trust me, trust us. Trust that this bond we've built is strong enough to hold you together even when everything else is trying to tear you apart. He pulled her into his arms, buried his face in her hair. Through the bond, she felt his terror and his desperate hope warring for dominance. If I fracture there, in front of everyone, they'll execute us on sight. No trial, no second chances. Then we won't fracture. She pulled back to look at him. We've got this, remember? You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. The next 6 weeks were intense. They trained, not physically, though that happened too, but mentally, emotionally, building strategies for managing fractures, creating anchor points Alara could use to pull Rowan back, documenting every trigger and response until they had data instead of fear. The episodes continued, but they were getting shorter. Where the first fracture had lasted 3 minutes, by week 4 they'd gotten it down to under a minute. By week 5, some episodes were measured in seconds, barely a flicker before Rowan pulled himself back. It's working, Alara said after a particularly brief episode. Whatever we're doing, it's working. Or the curse is adapting, getting smarter. But Rowan didn't sound as convinced of doom as he used to. They also started venturing out more, testing his stability in different environments. They visited pack borders, attended small territorial meetings, even had dinner with a neighboring pack alpha who'd heard about the claiming and wanted to meet the human brave enough, or stupid enough, to bind herself to a gray. That alpha, a woman named Sonia, with scars across her face and eyes like amber, had been surprisingly direct. Everyone's waiting for you to fail, she'd told Alara over venison stew. Waiting for Rowan to prove he's his father's son. But I'm hoping you succeed. Because if you can break this curse, it means the rest of us aren't trapped by our bloodlines either. What does that mean? It means every pack has legacies we're trying to escape. Stories about what we're supposed to become, who we're supposed to be. If a gray can overcome 5 generations of madness, maybe the rest of us can overcome our own inherited demons. She'd raised her glass. So here's to you, Ilara Gray. May you be the one who rewrites the rules. They'd drunk to that. To rewriting rules, to breaking curses, to surviving long enough to see if any of it mattered. The autumn gathering approached faster than Alara wanted. They packed light, clothes, supplies, Alara's notebook filled with fracture data. Rowan was tense, his wolf closer to the surface than she'd felt in weeks. We can still back out, he said the night before they were supposed to leave. Send word that I'm not stable enough. No one would blame us. Everyone would blame us. Or more specifically, they'd blame you. Say it proves the curse is progressing. Alara finished packing, turned to face him. We're going. We're proving you're not your father, and we're showing the council that their year-long test is one we're going to pass. Your confidence is terrifying. Good. Channel that terror into determination. They arrived at the gathering site at sunset, a massive clearing deep in protected wilderness, surrounded by ancient trees and already filling with wolves. Alara's enhanced senses were overwhelmed immediately. Hundreds of scents, sounds, presences pressing against her awareness. She grabbed Rowan's hand, used the bond to ground herself. Too much? He asked quietly. I'll manage. How are you? That's holding on, barely. His eyes had already started to shift silver, wolf reacting to the presence of so many other wolves. Stay close. Don't leave my side unless absolutely necessary. They made their way through the crowd, drawing stares everywhere they went. Alara heard the whispers. There's the gray. There's his human mate. Wonder how long before he snaps. She held her head high, refusing to show fear. Adelaide found them within an hour. She looked the same as she had at the claiming, ancient, powerful, eyes that saw everything. Rowan? Alara? You actually came. She sounded genuinely surprised. How are you holding up? So far, so good, Rowan said carefully. The real tests haven't started yet. Challenges for territory, dominance displays, pack disputes that need mediation. That's when things get intense. She studied his face. First sign of fracturing, you leave immediately. Understood? I'm giving you the chance to participate, but not at the cost of other pack members' safety. Understood. Good. There's someone who wants to meet you both. A scholar who's studied bloodline curses for decades. She might have insights. Adelaide gestured, and an older woman approached, human-looking but moving with the grace that suggested pack heritage. Dr. Chen, the woman introduced herself. I've been researching the Gray family history. With your permission, I'd like to ask some questions. Compare notes with what you've been documenting. Alara glanced at Rowan, felt his surprise through the bond. You know about our documentation? Adelaide told me. Said you've been treating the curse as a solvable problem instead of inevitable doom. That's exactly the approach I've been advocating for years, but no Gray would talk to me. Dr. Chen smiled. Until now, apparently. They spent the next hour in deep conversation, Dr. Chen asking detailed questions about fracture triggers, duration, recovery methods. Alara pulled out her notebook, shared everything they'd learned. By the end, the scholar was nodding thoughtfully. Your hypothesis about isolation worsening the curse aligns with my research. Every Gray who descended into complete madness did so in isolation. But the ones who maintained partial control, rare as they were, had strong pack bonds. Mates, family. She looked at Alara. You might actually be the key. Not because you're special necessarily, but because you represent connection. Proof that Rowan isn't alone. So the claiming wasn't just about saving her life, Rowan said slowly. It was creating the exact condition the curse can't survive. Precisely. The madness feeds on loneliness, on the fear of becoming a monster. But if you have someone who sees you as more than your bloodline, who fights for you instead of running from you, Dr. Chen gestured at Alara, then the curse loses its power. The gathering continued into the night. Alara watched Rowan navigate pack politics with increasing confidence, saw the way other wolves' fear of him started shifting to cautious respect. He mediated a territorial dispute between two younger packs, using logic and fairness instead of dominance. He spoke with elders who remembered his father, answered their questions about his stability with brutal honesty. And through it all, he didn't fracture once. By midnight, even Dante looked impressed. I'll admit, he said, finding them near the central bonfire, this isn't what I expected. You're holding together better than anyone thought possible. We're full of surprises, Alara said. Apparently. He glanced at Rowan. There's going to be a dominance challenge tomorrow. Young Alpha trying to establish territory. It's going to get violent. That's when you'll really be tested. We'll be ready. After Dante left, Rowan pulled Alara aside. I need to tell you something. If I fracture during that challenge, if the wolf takes over completely, you won't. But if I do, you need to run. Don't try to bring me back. Just run and let the others handle it. Absolutely not. We're in this together, remember? She cupped his face, made him look at her. You've made it 12 hours surrounded by hundreds of wolves, navigating complex politics, facing people who want you to fail. You're stronger than the curse, Rowan. You're proving it right now. He kissed her then, desperate and grateful and terrified. Through the bond, she felt everything he couldn't say, the hope he didn't dare believe in, the fear that he'd destroy everything, the love growing between them despite the impossible circumstances. When they broke apart, his eyes were wet. If we survive this, when we survive this, she corrected, when we survive this, I'm going to spend the rest of our lives making sure you never regret choosing me. Deal. The dominance challenge happened at dawn. The young Alpha was ambitious, aggressive, challenging an older wolf for control of prime hunting territory. It was brutal, blood and violence and the kind of savagery that reminded Alara these were predators wearing human faces. Rowan watched with silver eyes, his wolf close to the surface. Alara felt the strain through the bond, felt him fighting to maintain control, as instinct screamed at him to join the fight, to establish his own dominance. "Stay with me," she whispered, hand on his arm. "You're not part of this. You don't have to prove anything. The wolf wants to fight, wants to show them I'm not weak." "You're not weak. You're controlled. That's more impressive." She squeezed his arm. "Breathe. Focus on me. Let the challenge happen without you." It took everything he had. She felt him shaking, felt the fracture trying to surface. But he held on, through the worst of the violence, through the younger alpha's victory, through the reorganization of pack hierarchy that followed. When it was over, he was still standing, still whole, still himself. Adelaide approached as the crowd dispersed. "Impressive. I've seen wolves with perfect bloodlines fracture under less stress." She studied Rowan carefully. "You're actually doing it, breaking the pattern." "We're doing it," Alara corrected. "Together." "Yes, together." Adelaide's smile was small but genuine. "The council will want a full report, but based on what I've seen this weekend, I'm prepared to recommend continuing the trial. You've earned that much." After she left, Alara turned to find dozens of wolves watching them, not with fear or suspicion this time, with respect, recognition. Sonia, the scarred alpha from dinner weeks ago, approached. "You did it. Actually survived a gathering without fracturing." She clasped Rowan's shoulder. "Maybe some of us aren't trapped by our legacies after all." Other wolves came forward, some offering congratulations, some asking questions about how they'd managed it, some just acknowledging that maybe the gray curse wasn't the inevitable doom everyone believed. By the time they left the gathering 2 days later, something fundamental had shifted. They weren't pariahs anymore. They were proof that bloodlines didn't have to define destiny. They were hope. The drive back to the cabin was quiet, exhausted but triumphant. When they finally arrived home, Rowan pulled Alara into his arms and held her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. "We did it," he said, voice rough with emotion. "We actually did it." "I told you we would." "You did, and I should have believed you sooner." He pulled back to look at her. "The council's going to approve the trial. I can feel it. We're going to survive this year. We're going to do more than survive. We're going to thrive." Alara kissed him. "And then we're going to help other wolves break their own curses. Show them what we've learned. Pay it forward. Always thinking ahead." "Someone has to." She grinned. "Besides, you're stuck with me now. Might as well put my strategic planning to good use." They stood together in front of the cabin they'd made into a home, the bond between them strong and sure. The curse that had defined 5 generations of Greys finally starting to crack under the weight of their combined will. 8 months left in the trial. But for the first time since this whole impossible journey began, Alara believed they'd actually make it. And judging by the hope blazing in Rowan's silver eyes, he was starting to believe it too. The months that followed the autumn gathering were the most stable Rowan had experienced in his adult life. The fractures still came, less frequently now, barely flickering moments where the wolf tried to surface before Alara pulled him back. But they were manageable, predictable, almost routine. "Episode duration, 14 seconds, Alara said, marking it in her notebook. They were in the cabin, mid-December snow falling outside, the fire crackling warm. "Trigger, territorial boundary dispute heard on the radio, recovery method, physical contact plus verbal anchor." You make it sound so clinical, because it is clinical. That's how we beat it, by turning your curse into data we can analyze. She closed the notebook, moved to sit beside him. 4 months to go. We're going to make it, Rowan. You keep saying that like you can guarantee it. I can. Watch me. He pulled her close, breathing in her scent, pack and mate, and the forest they'd made their home. Through the bond, he felt her certainty, her absolute refusal to accept failure. It was terrifying and beautiful, and the only thing that kept him sane some days. "Dr. Chen wants us to present our findings at the Winter Council meeting," he said. "Adelaide specifically requested it. They want to hear how we've been managing the fractures." "That's good, right? Means they're taking us seriously. Or it means they're building a case, gathering evidence before they decide whether we live or die." He pulled back to look at her. "The winter meeting is where they make final rulings on trials. If they decide I'm still too dangerous, they won't wait for the full year to end." Alara absorbed this, her expression hardening in that way it did when she was calculating strategy. Then we make sure they see exactly what we want them to see. Proof that the curse is controllable, that we're not a threat, that everything they believed about the gray bloodline was wrong. That's a tall order. Good thing we've been practicing. She stood, pulled him up with her. Come on. If they're going to judge us in 6 weeks, we need to be perfect. Let's run scenarios. They spent the next month preparing. Alara created stress simulations, artificial situations designed to trigger fractures so they could practice managing them under controlled conditions. She'd blast recordings of pack challenges, put Rowan in confined spaces, even staged mock confrontations where she played the role of hostile alpha. Some of it worked. Some of it pushed him too far, sent him spiraling into fractures that took longer to recover from. But each time, Alara was there, anchor and partner and the stubborn human who refused to let him disappear into madness. You're getting better at this, Dr. Chen said during one of her visits. She'd been stopping by regularly, documenting their progress for her research. The fractures are shorter, less severe. You're building neural pathways that allow you to pull back faster. Is that actually possible? Rowan asked. Retraining my brain to resist the curse? The curse is genetic, yes, but genetics aren't destiny. Epigenetics, how your genes express themselves, can be influenced by environment, relationships, repeated behavioral patterns. She gestured at Alara. She's literally changing how your curse manifests by providing a consistent anchor point. It's remarkable. It's also fragile, Alara said. What happens if I'm not there? If something happens to me and Rowan has to manage fractures alone? Then we build secondary anchors. Teach him grounding techniques that don't rely on your presence. Dr. Chen pulled out her own notebook. Let's work on that today. They spent hours developing backup strategies, breathing patterns Rowan could use to slow fractures, physical markers he could focus on, even recorded messages from Alara he could play if she wasn't available. It was exhausting and necessary, and reminded them both how precarious their success actually was. The Winter Council meeting arrived in early February, held at the same ancient amphitheater where Rowan had claimed Alara 8 months earlier. Snow covered the stone seats, but hundreds of wolves had gathered anyway. Pack representatives from across the Northern Territories, all come to witness the Grey Judgment. This feels like a trial, Alara muttered as they walked into the center of the amphitheater. It is a trial, just less formal than the claiming. Rowan's hand found hers, squeezed. Stay close. No matter what they ask, no matter what happens, stay close. The council sat in their same positions, Adelaide in the center, the 4 others flanking her. But this time, there were additional observers, pack elders, territorial alphas, even a few humans who carried pack genes without shifting ability. Marcus was there, sitting beside Cassandra in the upper seats. Her sister looked uncomfortable, out of place among the wolves. Adelaide stood. We're gathered to render judgment on Rowan Gray and his mate, Alara Gray. 8 months ago, we granted them a 1-year trial to prove that the Gray bloodline curse could be controlled. We've received reports from multiple packs, witnessed their participation at the autumn gathering, and reviewed Dr. Chen's research documentation. She paused. Rowan Gray, step forward. Rowan released Alara's hand, moved to stand alone in the center. She felt his fear through the bond, felt the wolf stirring in response to being isolated, surrounded, judged. In the past 8 months, how many fracture episodes have you experienced? 43, Rowan answered clearly. 43 total episodes, ranging from 14 seconds to 4 minutes. All documented, all recovered from without injury to others. A murmur went through the crowd. 43 was a lot. Proof the curse was still active, but also proof he'd survived each one. And the triggers? Have you identified patterns? Yes. Most episodes correlate with memories of my father, challenges to authority, or situations involving pack dominance hierarchies. We've developed management strategies for each category. Show us, Adelaide's command was absolute. Demonstrate your control, Dante. Issue a challenge. Dante stood from his seat, moved into the amphitheater. His expression was neutral, but Alara felt the danger radiating from him. He was council-trained, lethal, and about to do exactly what Adelaide ordered. Rowan Gray, he said formally, I challenge your right to hold territory. You're a Gray, cursed, unstable, dangerous. Your land should be redistributed to stable packs who can protect it properly. It was designed to trigger a direct challenge to Rowan's authority, his legitimacy, everything the wolf would want to defend. Alara watched his eyes shift silver, watched his muscles tense as the fracture began. "Rowan," she called softly. Not moving toward him, Adelaide had said demonstrate, which meant he had to manage this himself. "Breathe. Count backward from 10. Find the anchor." His jaw clenched. She saw him fighting, saw the wolf surging forward while his human consciousness tried to hold the line. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The crowd watched in complete silence. At 40 seconds, Rowan's eyes cleared. He looked at Dante, and when he spoke, his voice was controlled. "Your challenge is noted. If you want my territory, you're welcome to try taking it through proper channels. But you won't get it by goading me into violence." Dante stared at him for a long moment, then smiled. "Well done. You held. Barely. But you held. That's what matters." He returned to his seat, and Alara finally breathed again. Adelaide stood once more. 40 seconds to recover from a direct dominance challenge. 8 months ago, you would have fractured completely within 10. She looked at the assembled council. "I believe we've seen sufficient evidence. Does anyone contest that Rowan Gray has demonstrated meaningful progress?" Silence. Then one of the other council members, an older man named Jacob, spoke. "Progress, yes, but sufficient progress to declare him safe? The curse is still active. The fractures still happen. What's to prevent him from eventually succumbing as his father did?" "The difference is isolation," Dr. Chen called out from her seat. "May I speak?" Adelaide nodded. "You have the floor." Dr. Chen stood, moved to the center beside Rowan. "I've studied 5 generations of Greys. Every single male who descended into complete madness did so in isolation. They believed the curse was inevitable, so they cut themselves off from pack bonds, from mates, from any connection that might anchor them. And that isolation fed the curse, made it stronger, until it consumed them." She gestured at Rowan and Alara. "These two have done the opposite. They've documented the curse, analyzed it, built strategies to manage it, and most importantly, they've maintained connection. Rowan isn't fighting this alone anymore. That changes everything." "It changes the variables," Jacob said, "but it doesn't eliminate the risk. What happens when the bond isn't enough? When a fracture happens that Alara can't pull him back from?" "Then we've built secondary anchors," Rowan said. "Techniques I can use independently. Dr. Chen has been training me for months. I'm not solely dependent on Alara for control." "Prove it." The command came from Adelaide. "Alara, leave the amphitheater. Go far enough that Rowan can't feel you through the bond." Alara's blood ran cold. "You want me to break our connection? I want to see if he can maintain control without you. If he can, then your management strategies are genuine. If he can't..." Adelaide's expression was implacable. "Then he's too dependent, and this trial has failed." "No." Rowan's voice was sharp. "She stays. That wasn't part of the agreement. The agreement was to prove you could control the curse. If that control only exists when she's physically present, then you haven't proven anything except that you've found a crutch." Adelaide looked at Alara. "Go, now. We'll wait." Alara looked at Rowan, saw panic starting to set in. Through the bond, she felt his wolf rising, the fracture beginning before she'd even moved. This was wrong. This was sabotage disguised as testing, but if they refused, they'd lose everything. "It's okay," she said quietly, moving toward him. "You can do this. We've practiced for this exact scenario. Not in front of hundreds of wolves waiting for me to fail. Same principle. Bigger audience." She squeezed his hand one last time. "Breathing patterns, physical anchors. The recording on your phone if you need my voice. You've got this." She forced herself to walk away. Out of the amphitheater, into the forest beyond, far enough that the bond stretched thin and distant. Far enough that when she felt Rowan fracture, hard and fast and completely, she couldn't do anything to help. In the amphitheater, Rowan's world collapsed. The moment Alara disappeared from his awareness, the wolf surged forward with a vengeance. Not the controlled fracture he'd been managing for months, but something worse, deeper. The kind of break his father had experienced before slaughtering his pack. He couldn't remember his name. Couldn't remember why he was standing in front of hundreds of watching wolves. Couldn't remember anything except blood and hunting and the need to establish dominance by any means necessary. Someone was speaking. Human sounds that meant nothing. He snarled, and the sound stopped. Then, impossibly, he heard her voice. Not through the bond, which had stretched beyond his reach. Through the phone in his pocket, which he'd forgotten he was carrying. Alara's recorded message, triggered automatically when his heart rate spiked past a certain threshold. Rowan, you're fracturing. I'm not there physically, but I'm here. I'm always here. Count backward from 10. Feel the ground under your feet. Remember who you are. Not your father, not the curse, not the wolf. You're Rowan Gray, and you're stronger than this. The words cut through chaos. He grabbed onto them like a lifeline, let her voice guide him back from the edge. 10, 9, 8. His vision started to clear. 7, 6, 5. The wolf began to retreat. 4, 3, 2. He could think again, could remember. 1. He opened his eyes. When had he closed them? And found himself kneeling in the snow, surrounded by wolves who'd backed away from him. Dante had shifted, was in attack position, clearly ready to take Rowan down if he'd gone fully feral. "Stand down," Rowan said hoarsely. I'm back." Slowly, Dante shifted to human form. "You were gone for 3 minutes. We thought, I know what you thought." Rowan stood on shaking legs, pulled out his phone. Alara's recorded message was still playing on loop. "But I came back, without her physically present, using the techniques we developed." Adelaide was staring at him like he'd performed a miracle. 3 minutes is the longest fracture episode you've had in months, and you recovered. Alone. Not alone. She gave me tools, taught me how to find my way back even when she's not there to pull me. He looked directly at the council. "That's what you wanted to see, right? Proof that I'm not dependent on Alara's physical presence for control?" "Yes." Adelaide's voice was soft. "That's exactly what we needed to see." Alara came running back into the amphitheater, terror written across her face. "I felt you fracture. It was bad." "Are you—" "I'm okay." He caught her as she crashed into him, held her tight. "I'm okay. It worked. Your recording, the breathing patterns, all of it. It worked." She was shaking. 3 minutes. You were gone for 3 minutes. I felt it through the bond. Felt you disappearing, and I couldn't do anything. But I came back. And I'll keep coming back. As many times as it takes." Adelaide cleared her throat. "The council needs to deliberate. Wait here." The 5 council members withdrew to the far side of the amphitheater, speaking in voices too low for even enhanced hearing to catch. The crowd murmured, speculation running wild. Alara kept her arms wrapped around Rowan, her face buried in his chest. "If they rule against us," she whispered, "we run. We disappear. I don't care about pack law or trials, or any of it. We're not running. Whatever they decide, we face it together." 10 minutes felt like hours. Finally, Adelaide returned to the center, her expression unreadable. "The council has reached a decision." She waited until the crowd quieted completely. "Rowan Gray, 8 months ago, you were a rogue shifter with a cursed bloodline and no future. Today, you're a wolf who has demonstrated more control than anyone thought possible. You've proven that the Gray curse, while still active, can be managed through connection, strategy, and sheer force of will." She paused. "Therefore, the council rules in your favor. Your trial period is concluded early. Your rogue status is hereby revoked. You are recognized as a legitimate pack member with full territorial rights." The amphitheater erupted. Some wolves cheered, some protested, but Adelaide wasn't finished. "Furthermore, given the groundbreaking nature of what you and Alara have accomplished, the council is establishing a new initiative. You will work with Dr. Chen to develop curse management protocols for other bloodlines struggling with inherited instability. Share what you've learned. Help other wolves break the patterns that have trapped their families for generations." Rowan stared at her, unable to process what he was hearing. "You want us to—" "What?" "We want you to turn your personal victory into a resource for the entire pack community. You've proven that genetic curses aren't destiny. Now prove it's replicable." Adelaide smiled, genuinely smiled. "Congratulations, Rowan Gray. You've rewritten your family's legacy." The weight of 8 months of terror and fractures and desperate hope finally lifted. Rowan pulled Alara into his arms and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. She kissed him back, both of them crying now, relief and triumph and disbelief mixing together. When they finally broke apart, the amphitheater had descended into chaos, wolves congratulating them, Elders arguing about precedent, pack representatives already asking when they could schedule consultations. Through it all, Ilara held on to Rowan like she'd never let go. "We did it," she said, voice wondering. "We actually did it. You did it. I was just the broken wolf you decided to fix. You were never broken, just untested." She grinned up at him. "And now you're going to help fix other people. How does that feel?" "Terrifying, impossible, perfect." Dante approached, Mara beside him. "I'll admit," he said, extending his hand, "I didn't think you'd make it. I'm glad to be wrong." Rowan shook his hand warily. "Does this mean you're done trying to execute me?" "For now, but I'll be watching. If the curse progresses, it won't. We've got it managed. We'll see." But Dante's smile was almost friendly. "For what it's worth, you've given hope to a lot of wolves who thought they were trapped by their genetics. That counts for something." After they left, Sonia appeared, the scarred alpha who'd toasted to rewriting rules at that dinner months ago. "I have 3 pack members with inherited instability. When can you start consultations? We haven't even figured out how this initiative works yet. Doesn't matter, you've proven it's possible. That's enough to start." She clasped both their shoulders. "Thank you for showing us that we're not slaves to our bloodlines." Over the next hour, they were approached by dozens of wolves, some seeking help, some offering congratulations, some just wanting to witness the impossible made real. By the time the crowd finally dispersed, Ilara was exhausted and overwhelmed and happier than she'd been in her entire life. Marcus found them as they were preparing to leave. Cassandra wasn't with him. "That was impressive," he said quietly. "I didn't think you'd pull it off." "Neither did anyone else," Rowan replied. Marcus looked at Ilara. "Your family's been asking about you, your mother especially. She's not handling your disappearance well." "That's her problem, not mine." Ilara kept her voice neutral. "I made my choice. I'm not going back." "I know, I told them that. Repeatedly." He hesitated. For what it's worth, Cassandra feels guilty. About everything. The wedding, taking Marcus, how your family treated you. She wants to talk. "Maybe someday, but not today. Today I want to go home with my mate and celebrate not being executed." Marcus smiled, genuine and sad. "Fair enough. Congratulations, Ilara. You found what you were looking for." After he left, Rowan pulled Ilara close. "Do you ever regret it? Walking away from your old life?" "Not even once." She kissed him softly. "That life was killing me slowly. This life, with you, with the pack, with purpose, this is real. This is freedom. Even with the curse, the fractures, the danger, especially with those things. Because we're facing them together and we're winning." She grinned. "Besides, what's life without a little existential terror to keep things interesting?" His laugh was rough but genuine. "I love you. Have I mentioned that?" "Not in so many words, but I knew anyway." She touched his face. "I love you too. Even the cursed, fractured, impossible parts." They drove back to the cabin as dawn broke over the forest, the bond between them stronger than ever. When they arrived, Rowan carried her over the threshold like they were newlyweds, which, in a way, they were. 8 months claimed, but finally free. "What do we do now?" Ilara asked as he set her down. "Besides help other wolves break their curses?" "We live. Really live. Build the life we want instead of the one we were handed." He pulled her toward the fire. "Maybe expand the cabin. Make room for the research center Dr. Chen wants to establish. Build something permanent." I like the sound of permanent. They spent the rest of the day making plans for the research initiative, for expanding their territory, for the future that had suddenly opened up before them. Dr. Chen called that evening, already organizing consultation schedules and research protocols. Sonia sent a message with dates for her pack members to visit. Adelaide herself reached out, officially appointing them as curse management specialists. Their impossible survival had become something bigger, something that mattered beyond just themselves. 2 weeks later, their first consultation arrived. A young wolf named Kai, whose family carried a curse similar to the Greys. Uncontrolled rage, lost time, violence he couldn't prevent. He looked terrified and desperate, and exactly how Rowan had looked 8 months ago. "Can you really help me?" Kai asked, voice breaking. Everyone says I'm going to end up like my father, that it's just a matter of time before I hurt someone. Alara and Rowan exchanged glances. Then Rowan smiled, the first genuinely hopeful smile Alara had seen on his face. Yes, he said simply. We can help, because curses aren't destiny. They're just problems waiting to be solved, and we've gotten very good at solving impossible problems. Over the next months, they worked with dozens of cursed wolves, each one carrying different inherited instabilities, each one convinced they were doomed. Some progressed quickly, some struggled, but all of them found hope in what Rowan and Alara had proven possible. The research center expanded. Dr. Chen moved into a cabin they built specifically for her work. Other specialists joined, psychologists, geneticists, wolves with expertise in bloodline curses. What had started as one couple's desperate survival strategy became a legitimate field of study. And through it all, Rowan's fractures continued to decrease. By their 1-year anniversary, he'd gone 3 months without a single episode. By year 2, 6 months. The curse was still there, would always be there, but it had become background noise instead of existential threat. I had a dream last night, Rowan said one morning as they watched the sunrise from their expanded cabin's porch. The research center sprawled below them, lights already on as Dr. Chen and her team started their day. About my father, but for the first time I wasn't terrified of becoming him. I was sad for what he'd lost by fighting the curse alone. He would have been proud of you, Alara said quietly. Proud that you broke the pattern. Maybe. Or maybe he would have seen it as weakness, needing help, depending on others. He pulled her closer. But I don't care what he would have thought. I care that we're building something he never could, proving that connection is strength, not weakness. 3 years after the claiming, the Council formally recognized the Curse Management Program as an official PAC resource. Adelaide retired, recommending Rowan as her replacement on the Council. He declined, preferring research to politics, but the offer itself was recognition of how far he'd come. Cassandra reached out on Alara's 32nd birthday. The message was tentative, asking if maybe they could talk. Alara didn't respond immediately. Some wounds needed time, but she saved the message knowing that eventually she'd be ready. Margaret Vance never tried to contact her. Richard sent one letter, mostly about business opportunities with PAC-affiliated companies. Alara burned it without reading past the first paragraph. Some relationships weren't worth salvaging, but the PAC, her real family now, surrounded her with support and purpose. She'd gone from the disappointing Vance daughter to Alara Gray, curse specialist, advocate for wolves trapped by genetic legacy. She'd found her calling in the wilderness she'd once fled to in despair. 5 years after the claiming, Rowan woke her in the middle of the night. I need to tell you something, he said, and the seriousness in his voice made her sit up immediately. What's wrong? Did you fracture? No. The opposite. He took her hands. I haven't fractured in 18 months. Haven't felt the pull of the curse in almost a year. Dr. Chen ran scans, genetic markers that indicate curse activity. They're dormant. Not gone, but sleeping so deep they might never wake up. Alara stared at him. What does that mean? It means we did it. We actually broke the curse. Not just managed it, but fundamentally changed how it expresses itself in my genetics. His eyes were wet. It means I get to grow old with you without wondering if I'll wake up one day and not recognize you. It means we won. She kissed him, tasting salt and triumph, and 5 years of desperate work finally paying off. We should celebrate. We should tell Dr. Chen so she can document this for other wolves. Later. Right now, I want to celebrate with my mate, who just beat a 5-generation curse through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. She pulled him back to bed. The research can wait until morning. He laughed, and it was the freest sound she'd ever heard from him. Have I mentioned lately that choosing you was the best decision I ever made? You've implied it once or twice. She grinned. But feel free to keep mentioning it. I'll never get tired of hearing it. They celebrated quietly, just the two of them, in the cabin they'd built into a home. Outside, the forest breathed around them, wild and dangerous and beautiful. The same forest where Alara had fled in despair, where a white wolf had found her broken and bleeding, where everything had changed. Morning came too soon. Dr. Chen arrived at dawn, already planning how to publish Rowan's case study, what it meant for curse research, how they could replicate the results. The research center buzzed with excitement as word spread. The Gray Curse, the most notorious bloodline instability in PAC history, had been broken. Wolves came from across the territories to witness it, to understand how it had happened, to carry hope back to their own families trapped by genetic legacy. The council requested a full presentation. Other research centers asked for their protocols. Media, pack media, the careful network that kept shifter society hidden from humans, wanted interviews. Through it all, Alara and Rowan stayed grounded in the simple truth that had saved them. Love and connection were stronger than inherited doom. It wasn't magic. It wasn't divine intervention. It was work, hard, terrifying, impossible work, but it was replicable, provable, real. 10 years after the claiming, they stood on a stage in front of the largest pack gathering in recorded history. Thousands of wolves had assembled, representatives from every territory, carriers and shifters and humans bound to pack, all come to hear about curse management and genetic destiny and the future they were building together. 10 years ago, Alara said into the microphone, I was a human woman who'd never heard of shifters. I was suffocating in a life that looked perfect from the outside, but was killing me slowly from the inside. And I made a choice that everyone said was insane. I ran into the wilderness looking for escape, and I found something better. I found purpose. I found family. I found a partner who showed me that the things we're told are impossible are just things no one's tried hard enough to solve. She looked at Rowan, standing beside her on the stage. The gray curse destroyed 5 generations. It was supposed to destroy us too, but we turned it into data, into a problem, into something we could fight together, and we won. Not because we're special, but because we refused to fight alone. Rowan took the microphone. Everything we learned, we're sharing. Every protocol, every strategy, every failure that taught us what not to do. Because the biggest lie genetics ever told us is that we're trapped by our bloodlines. We're not. We're shaped by them, challenged by them, but never trapped. Not if we're willing to do the work of changing. The crowd erupted. Wolves who'd spent lifetimes believing they were doomed suddenly seeing possibility. Families reuniting across the distance their curses had created. Hope spreading like wildfire through a community that had been taught to fear its own genetics. After the presentation, a young wolf, barely 20, eyes wide with desperate hope, approached them. My family has a curse. We lose our ability to shift, become stuck between forms, die young. Can you help us? Alara and Rowan looked at each other, then smiled. Yes, they said together. We can help. Because that was what they did now. That was what they'd built from the ashes of Rowan's supposed doom and Alara's desperate escape. They helped. They proved. They showed the impossible becoming real, one cursed bloodline at a time. 20 years after the claiming, Alara stood in the ruins where she'd first slept beside a white wolf. They'd preserved this place, made it a memorial to where everything had changed. Younger wolves came here to see it, to understand that the most important transformations often started in the darkest moments. Rowan found her there, silver still threading his hair but eyes clear and unclouded by curse or madness. Thinking about that night, he asked, settling beside her on the ancient stone, thinking about how close I came to giving up. If I'd turned back, if I'd gone to the estate instead of deeper into the forest, but you didn't. You chose the harder path, the dangerous one, the one that saved us both. She leaned into him, feeling the bond between them, stronger now than ever, tempered by 2 decades of choosing each other every single day. Do you ever regret it, all of this? Never. Not once. Not even during the worst fractures, the hardest work, the moments I was sure I'd fail. He kissed her forehead. You gave me a future I never thought I'd have. You gave hope to wolves who'd lost it. You turned my curse into purpose. How could I ever regret that? Even though I'm getting old, gray hair, slower healing, human lifespan catching up with me, especially because of that, because it means I get to grow old with you. Wake up every morning knowing we survived what should have destroyed us. His voice roughened. And when your time comes, whenever that is, I'll have had decades with you instead of the months everyone predicted. That's not something to regret. That's everything I ever wanted. Alara's eyes burned. You're making me cry, you know. Good. You made me cry for 20 years. About time I returned the favor. They sat together in the ruins as the sun set. 2 people who'd found each other in the wilderness and built something impossible. The research center thrived below them, dozens of wolves working to break their own curses. The pack community had transformed. embracing connection over isolation, hope over resignation. And it all started because a heartbroken human had walked into the forest looking for escape, and a cursed wolf had decided she was worth saving. "Thank you," Rowan said quietly, "for being brave enough to choose me when everyone said I was doomed. Thank you for showing me what real freedom looks like, for loving me enough to let me be broken and fierce and exactly who I needed to be." The forest breathed around them. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, not in mourning or madness, but in celebration. The sound of a community no longer trapped by its own genetics. The sound of hope made real. Elara and Rowan sat in the ruins until the stars came out, bound together by a claiming that had rewritten every rule about what was possible. And when they finally stood to return home, to the cabin, the research center, the life they'd built from impossible beginnings, they walked hand in hand. Partners. Mates. The wolf and the woman who'd proven that love and stubborn determination could break any curse, survive any wilderness, overcome any doom. They'd rewritten destiny, and they'd done it together.